Accidentally overhearing a conversation between her husband and his mistress, Linda decided. Linda screamed and jumped on the stool. The huge gray mouse looked carefully at the woman with its black eyes and, as if nothing had happened, went towards the plinth under the windowsill. The mouse disappeared into some invisible crevice. "Mum, why are you shouting?" came a voice from the corridor. "Mia," Linda said, laughing as she climbed down to the floor. "And we're not the only people here." "What do you mean?" A sleepy, disheveled teenage girl in a wide pink t-shirt appeared in the doorway. "She's hiding." Linda nodded toward the windowsill. "She seemed to have a well-established route." "A mouse," Mia said, as if in disbelief. "Where would it come from? A new home." "I'd understand if we'd moved into a holler." "Mom, maybe you're imagining things. You haven't slept much, have you?" "Well," Linda laughed. "Maybe you've never seen mice, only mice in cages. I grew up in the country. There was a lot of this stuff there. I'm sure I wouldn't confuse it with anything else. Still, it's strange. Where did it come from?" "Economical housing?" My daughter grumbled skeptically. "From the ventilation, I suppose. They haven't installed the extractor yet. It must have come out of that hole over there. We should call a pest control service right away." "Don't you feel sorry for the mouse?" Mother frowned. "It's so small." "Where there's a mouse, there's a pack of mice." Mia wagged her finger. "Mum, you're like a little girl. You always feel sorry for everyone. It's not a house mouse. It's a real pest. If we let it in, it'll eat everything." "Yes, you're right." My daughter, the woman, shook her head. "Maybe we'd better get a cat. We'll get rid of it naturally, so to speak." "I don't know. Dad won't like it." "You know he's had a thing for cats since childhood, don't you?" "I used to ask him for a kitten when I was little. And if he was allergic or something, he just didn't like them. I'd get one. It's more fun with a cat. I'm alone at home all day." "Do you go to school or out with your friends?" "Dad's at work. Isabella only comes round when she wants to chat. Lately she's disappeared. She doesn't even answer messages. Aunt Isabella's a real piece of work. I don't even know why you hang out with her. She's mean. And I think she's making eyes at Daddy." Mia sat down at the table with her arms crossed over her chest. "Come on, Isabella's fine. I've been friends with her since we were in high school. Yeah, she's got a bit of a temper, of course. Dad thinks she's a bitch. I'm the only one who knows her well. She's miserable. She's so beautiful, smart, but her love life is a failure. I feel sorry for her." "You always feel sorry for everyone." "Aunt Isabella is a real bitch. Her life doesn't work out because everyone else is bad, but because she has too many expectations. She doesn't think of men as people. She just takes money from them. She's an arrogant fool." "Mia, you can't talk about people like that. What's wrong with you?" "What's wrong with that?" "You're the one with the rose-colored glasses, aren't you? I'm telling you, look at your girlfriend or she'll steal our dad. What's she care? She'll play with it and throw it away and ruin our family." "Mia, don't be daft. Michael would never even look at Isabella. I mean, how could you think Dad would do something like that? We've been together for 14 years. I never thought he'd even consider another woman, much less my mate. Men don't think with their heads, and Aunt Isabella is a master manipulator." "Okay, let's drop it. I just want you to know that she's flirting with him. I've seen it myself, and a woman can't hide it." "You're a woman. Come on, let's have breakfast, cause the tea's gone cold while we're talking about that Brazilian soap opera." "I don't have to be at school till 12 today," Mia said as she took a bite of her sandwich. "Mrs. Brown's taking us to the museum today." "Oh yeah? You didn't even say anything about a field trip. Do you need any money?" "Yeah, I've got some. Dad gave it to me yesterday. I forgot to tell you." "You always do." Linda looked at her daughter reproachfully. "You didn't forget to tell me about Aunt Isabella, but about the museum. Where are you going?" "Yes, the local history museum. There's some new exhibit there. How will the little ones take us? At least I'll get to hang out with Oscar. He's obsessed with all that stuff. He's such a nerd. He'll never come to school. He's all about his studies. Oscar is a very nice boy. I've known his mom for a long time. She's a nice, intelligent woman. I thought he was going to study archaeology. He's right to study. You've got a lot on your mind right now. You're all smart, advanced, supposedly knowledgeable about life, but in reality, it's all entertainment. and the cult of video clips. You should do your homework too. You got a C in physics. Why? You've always been so clever and keen to learn. It was Mr. Smith. He gave everyone a C. It was just a mood. Mia, you're not everyone. You always have to be a cut above the rest. It's just a teacher in a bad mood. I know you're Mr. Smith, he's a bastard. But you've got to be able to find a way to get along. You can't get along with him, Mum. He made Olivia cry, too. He said people like her can't take in information. They can only bat their eyelashes. And he started telling her something about waves, that she was flapping her eyelashes and didn't even know what kind of vibration she was creating. Well, of course. Okay, it's up to you, but fix your grades. You probably hate getting C's yourself. And Oscar? Don't overdo it, or you'll embarrass the boy, you perky girl. It's all right, Mum. Mia wrinkled her nose. Are we having a housewarming party this weekend? Of course, I've already invited the guests. Tomorrow we just need to install the extractor fan to make the kitchen look nice. It's not proper to welcome guests like this. At least stay with us for an hour, or you'll go out again. I will. Mia kissed her mother on the cheek and headed for the exit. Thanks for breakfast. Linda was shelving books and figurines. She didn't like the new flat, but she had to move. They used to live in the center, in a spacious Stalinist building overlooking the river. But life had turned out so that Michael had run up large debts. Business was going badly, and the sale of an expensive and oversized flat of 4 rooms was a forced measure. The new 1-bedroom was in a new building on the outskirts. The place was quite quiet and decent. There was a forest park nearby. From the balcony on the 13th floor, there was a magnificent view of the city, especially in the evenings when the lights were on. Yes, and it was closer to Mia's school from here. One car had to be sold too, but Linda didn't drive much, so she parted with it without regret. But now Michael was doing better. He managed to pay off the loan and get rid of the headache of calls from creditors. I have to do something about my job, Linda thought. My remote work, of course, brings income, but it's not enough. Especially with Michael, it's unclear what's going on. He's been ripped off by his partner, robbed, you might say. Well, at least the debts have been sorted out, and the suppliers are showing off they've raised their prices. If it goes on like this, I'll have to close the business, and we'll both have to go to the factory. And Mia's at an age where money is like water. It's like water. Where am I going to go? Since I left the office, I'm not used to dealing with people. All I know how to do is make estimates. But I need customers. As long as I've been working remotely, I've been working with the same ones. It's not like I'm on a notice board offering my services. I know that an estimator can become a millionaire, but I'm not at that level. And I don't want to abandon the house. Well, I'll think about it at my leisure. In the meantime, I've got to call Isabella to see if she's coming on Saturday. Mia does talk such rubbish. Yeah, Isabella's going to make eyes at Michael. I don't know what she's thinking. Objectively speaking, my girlfriend's a money hound. Ever since she was young, she's never been much for feelings. It's just the way she is. But Michael's not much to take. I don't believe she's in love with him. No way. I'd rather see that mouse go into space. That's more likely. Michael, of course, a good man, but objectively not handsome and boring. But as a husband and father, he's completely fulfilled. Mia loves us a lot because of his failures, worries not because of ambition, and that we will be worse off. He's kind. Linda dialed her friend's number. Hello? Isabella's voice came through. I hear you're in a good mood. Linda laughed into the receiver. Oh, Linda, I was just thinking about you. What's up? How's the housewarming party going? Can you believe I saw a mouse in the kitchen today? What, a mouse? Did Mia bring it in? No, a real mouse. It must have crawled out of the vent. We'll put the extractor fan on tomorrow. I hope we don't get any more visitors like that. I'm just sorting out my things. You like it there? After the choir in the center, it must be uncomfortable. Yes, it's bearable, Isabella. You can get used to anything. It's all about having a roof over your head. And my daughter has her own room. We're not posh, of course, but it's decent enough. Quiet courtyard, parking, children's playground. The view is beautiful, and I can't hear the neighbors, so it's fine. You'll see for yourself on Saturday. You're coming, right? Where would I go? Isabella laughed. Can I bring you anything? Yes, I've got everything. Don't be ridiculous. We are not impoverished, but just temporarily lowered the standard of living. Oh, Linda. We'll get through this. Thank you, Isabella. I love you so much. My family may be skeptical about you, but they're wrong. Let them think what they want. What do I care? You're my friend, and I don't criticize your daughter's friends. I'm sure there's some pretty good ones out there. And you shouldn't listen to Michael. He understands a lot about people. He worshipped Arnold, thought he was his friend. And what did he end up with? A multi-million-dollar debt and a ruined business. Now you're looking for Arnold. You're right, aren't you? God, Isabella, why are you always right? Life has taught me. I can see right through people. You know, I've been with all kinds of people. Now I don't care about anyone at all. I wondered if I love myself. What do you love? Not a damn thing. I've been running away from myself all my life. I'm 30 years old with a big tail. What have I got? Emptiness, pain, and a box full of gifts from different men. It's not fulfilling. You need a child, Isabella. You think about it, where to give birth to a child in this crazy world. And there's no man. Not from the Holy Ghost. Well, that's no problem at all. You can find a donor. It's not like we're building a relationship or go to a specialized center. It's a popular trend these days. No, I can't do that, Linda. I have to do it for love. Oh, don't be ridiculous. You still believe in love. Like you said, you're well past 30. You don't have to worry about love anymore. Michael and I never really had much love. But that doesn't stop us from appreciating and respecting each other. And I've never been greedy for romance. Well, I'm not you, Linda. My feelings always come first. Right? Linda grinned to herself. Money comes first. You've got someone to take advantage of. Love of money, to be more precise. It's up to you, she continued aloud. But don't let that train get away. I'm glad I had Mia early, but now she's big, and I'm not old yet, and I can live a little longer. Isn't that right? But I can't do that anyway. And all those nappy things, I'll have to revise them all my life. And I don't want to go round hospitals looking like a tortured man, wiping the floor looking for a doctor to help me conceive. You don't think it'll work without IVF? Isabella, 35 is not 45. Can you still get pregnant on your own? Let's leave this topic, it's boring, Isabella laughed. Anyway, wait for me on Saturday. Okay, it's a deal, Linda smiled and said goodbye. The guests were sitting at the table in the room that served both as a living room and a bedroom. Linda, responding to the back of the sofa, laughed merrily as she told her mates about the mouse marching briskly through their kitchen. Mia, in the company of her friend Mary, was showing an older couple, friends of the family, the view from the balcony. They were having fun, and some of them were even trying to dance to the jazz playing from the speakers. Linda noticed that the bottles of wine on the table were empty and went to the kitchen to get more. Michael walked towards her. The man was already quite drunk. Michael, I wondered where you'd disappeared to. Linda exclaimed. No sign of Isabella either. Your girlfriend's in the kitchen. We were talking to her. Did you two have another clash of opinions? Not at all. Isabella's gaunt figure appeared behind her husband. We had a very nice chat. I confess I underestimated your husband, Linda. I always thought he was such a stale, narrow-minded wimp. Turns out Michael just doesn't know how to relax. A couple of glasses of wine can loosen his tongue. I can see why you married him. He can make you laugh, and he can keep the dialogue flowing. What is it about you? I wonder such a conversation. Surprised Linda. She herself and her husband rarely talked about interesting topics. Usually all the conversations were about everyday life, her daughter, another purchase or discussion of watched episodes of some TV series. So, about various things, Isabella answered vaguely. Love. Michael purred. Love? Linda interjected. Yes, Isabella nodded, not letting Michael answer. He loves you, it turns out. I always thought your marriage was a marriage of honor. No offense, Linda. You never know from the outside what's going on. Household, work, teenage daughter. You don't go out to restaurants, you don't even go out together. Where's the romance? What romance, Isabella? We've been married for so many years. How many years? Michael perked up, leaning against the wall. What does time matter? You're wrong, Linda. There should always be room for romance, bouquets, candy. Really? The wife looked closely at her husband. Why don't you show it in any way? Flowers only on the 8th of March, candy usually yourself all and eat. Linda, do not wind up, held her friend. And you, Michael, go to the guests, because they are bored without you. That's right, I wanted to show Mr. Wilson the new tools. The man blinked. Go on then. Or Mr. Wilson has already lost you. For some reason, Lyda was very angry with her husband. When Michael left, Isabella looked her friend straight in the eye. Linda, what are you doing? You just jumped on your husband out of nowhere. Isabella, what is he saying that's so hurtful? Hey mate, he's drunk. Why are you listening to him? Do you want flowers? What flowers? No. What does flowers have to do with anything? He's just saying you can't have romance without romance. I wish you'd do something about it. You say he loves me, but I don't feel it. I mean, it shouldn't be weird. I mean, we got married more out of convenience than anything else. No, of course we had feelings, but we both needed a stamp in our passports. My mom pressed me, and he was told at work that he'd be promoted, that family men were preferred. And since we had been friends for a long time, we decided to make a fake marriage. And then we realized we were good together, comfortable and fun. Mia was born. Linda, you should be happy. What is love anyway? You know how many people get married for love and then run away from each other after a year. You have stability, a union based on respect. To me, that's worth a lot. Although I myself would only marry for love. I can't do otherwise. What's wrong with me? Linda suddenly took offense. I too, maybe want to be carried in my arms, showered with compliments, kissed tenderly, and not as a duty officer, taking a shift. You're so interesting, Linda. Isabella was indignant. You should marry for love. What's the problem? What you sow is what you reap. Have you forgotten? It's silly to expect a man who's just a friend to love you. And you love him too, by the way. Don't tell me now that Michael makes you feel passionate. Well, Linda said uncertainly. I guess you're right. I love Michael, but not as a man, more as a family member. A husband, not a lover. I don't mean that in a bad way. I only sleep with him once a month, and that's out of obligation. I feel that he is not much attracted to me. And I do not feel much desire myself. Maybe Isabella squinted. Don't get me wrong, Linda. Maybe you should find another man. What are you talking about? The woman darted her eyes at her friend. Why do you say that? We have a family. It's not like I'm some kind of... It's cheating. Don't shout like that. Isabella put her hand on Linda's shoulder. Why is it cheating? Cheating is when you love someone, you're devoted to them, and then you stumble, and that's it. What about you? You live like this, Linda. You'll die before you even know what love is. And a woman only reveals herself when she feels loved. Stop living like a robot. What makes you happy? Me? Linda thought. Mia. Your Mia is already a big horse. You wait a couple more years, she won't even call you. She'll fly out of the nest. What are you going to do then? Unloved husband. Loneliness, boring work, old age creeping up on you. Why do you say such scary things? Well, isn't it true? Well, isn't it true? I know what I'm talking about, Linda. I'm 35, just like you. The only difference is that I don't have a husband or kids. I do have a good job and I love it. But that's not going to last forever. And the fact that I don't have any luck with men. You know, yes, none of them ever made me married, but for the time I was with each of them, I felt really happy. For a woman, it's synonymous loved and happy. There's no other way to put it. You know, I'll keep looking for men like that, not trying to get them to marry me. And then, when I will be 60 years old, I will find some quiet grandfather, and I will live differently, simply, calmly and measured. Although nowadays even at 60 ladies can be so hot. Did you see Miss Argentina? Isabella, I will never accuse you or try to change your mind. Your views and beliefs, your lifestyle, it's all yours. I respect your choice, but I can't do it myself. I don't know if it's my upbringing or my morals. And if Michael found out and Mia found out, it would be a nightmare. I can't let my family down for my own amusement. You're a fool, Linda. You're just going to feel guilty in your old age for sticking to your stupid principles. Well, that's up to you. I'm not going to persuade you. I respect your opinion as much as you do, even if it doesn't agree with mine. Let's go to the guests. You went to get the wine. There's still a couple of bottles left. Let's get it. Lita was holding her smartphone with the app shop open. Her thumb was already hovering over the button install, but the woman still did not dare. Almost 5 months had passed since the housewarming conversation with her friend. And although Linda immediately dismissed the idea of cheating, her relationship with Michael was only getting worse. Mia went on holiday to a language camp. She didn't really want to go there, but when the girl found out that Oscar was going there, she immediately began to process her parents. Michael flatly refused to pay. The money was really very little. But seeing her daughter's upset face, Linda pulled a plastic card out of the cupboard and gave it to Mia. It contained enough money to pay for the camping trip, the road and pocket money. Mia was overjoyed. Her father only grumbled grudgingly, saying that the money would have been better invested in business. Linda hummed and said that the amount was ridiculous for a business, but it would make the child happy. And there was nothing to talk about. Linda didn't like her husband's reaction at all. He'd never denied Mia anything before. He adored his daughter. But lately something had changed. Linda couldn't figure out what it was. Only her husband's company came out of the minus and began to slowly recover, as the money at home became even less. Michael explained it by the fact that every penny invested in the business and should tighten their belts. He stopped giving his daughter pocket money. Linda had to cut out of her own salary, but recently there were not so many orders. The last straw was when Michael didn't come home. The man stayed at work to check some reports. Linda called her husband to find out what to cook for dinner, and in response she heard a scolding and an insistent request not to interfere with him. That evening the woman sat at her desk and thought she was miserable. Isabella was right on all counts. When a woman is unloved, nothing brings her joy. Normally Mia would dampen that feeling of loneliness by reminding Linda that she was a mother and loved by her child. But Mia was far away, and she was to spend the next fortnight abroad. Linda thought long and hard and finally decided to install a dating app for herself. Her conscience tormented her a lot, but the desire to experience a strong feeling was drawing her in, and it was getting harder and harder to control herself. Realizing that she couldn't handle it, the woman still clicked the install button. The interface was quite simple. Linda had never used anything like it, but she figured it out quickly. She uploaded a couple of photos of herself, filled out a form. The likes came pouring in. The woman began to study the candidates. Mostly guests from the East and young boys wrote. She didn't want to answer them at all. Moreover, most of the proposals were quite vulgar, and even frankly obscene. Linda quickly got bored and put the phone away. Before going to bed, she went back to the app. More than 100 messages had accumulated. Lita flipped through the list, sometimes even replied. And then one man caught her eye. His face seemed vaguely familiar. The woman immediately began to go through the memory of all the acquaintances, matching the age and name, but no one came to mind. Still, she decided to answer. The guy was called Ethan, a simple American name. A simple face with huge blue eyes. Linda liked him immediately. The man was a little older. He was pleasant and delicate in communication. He didn't ask for photos, didn't throw his own. He simply offered to meet and get acquainted in person, to understand at once whether it was necessary to continue communication, rather than to drag the rubber with endless messages. And Linda agreed. Yes, she was embarrassed in front of her husband and daughter, but she hadn't done anything about it yet. The meeting at the coffee shop seemed harmless enough. After all, no one was forcing her to continue that interaction. Maybe Ethan would be a good friend too. But deep down, Linda realized that she really liked this man. It seemed that they had known and understood each other for a long time. The meeting was scheduled for the next day. Linda chose a place that was far from home and where neither she nor Michael ever went. The woman couldn't sleep until almost morning. She tossed and turned for a long time, her head hot, curiosity and conscience arguing. Finally, she passed out. The alarm clock beeped demandingly, forcing Linda to get up sooner. The woman rose, writhing unhappily. There was the sound of water running from the bathroom. "What's that?" She shuddered. Had Michael returned? Lita got up, threw on a dressing gown and went into the corridor. Her husband's shoes stood in the hallway. On the banquette settled his briefcase. The woman walked to the kitchen to quickly prepare breakfast. She fried eggs and boiled coffee. Smells good. Michael appeared in the doorway, wiping his wet hair with a towel. I thought you'd never come back. Somehow hopelessly said the wife. Yes, I just had to wash up and have breakfast. Michael kissed Linda on the cheek. I've been sitting up all night, my head is spinning. I'd give half a kingdom for a coffee right now, and all I get at the office is instant. You have no idea what's going on with the paperwork in there. And we have an audit coming up. The accountant who came in with Arnold, she's got my hair all over the place. I'm going again. You sit down to breakfast. Linda pulled away. The unfortunate conscience pricked her heart, and the woman was ready to give up meeting with Ethan. Looking at her husband, so tired and indignant at the same time, she only wanted to take care of him, to prepare dinner and meet him in the evening, as she always did. Michael ate hastily and packed quickly. When he left, Linda picked up her phone to text Ethan and cancel the meeting, but there was already a message waiting for her, which abruptly changed her plans. Hi, beautiful. I would like to write poems to make your awakening pleasant, but alas, I'm not a poet, so I'll just wish you a good morning and the most pleasant experience. I hope that no evil forces will interfere with our meeting. Linda was very pleased to read this. She hadn't heard anything like that in a long time. She'd hardly heard anything like that in a long time. The words, though printed in a soulless application, seemed sincere and radiated some warmth. Linda hesitated, but decided to reply that everything was in order. By noon she was ready, had done a light makeup, and had not gone too far with her outfit. The woman threw on a light floral dress, let her hair down and shoved her feet into simple beige sandals. Placing her sunglasses on the bridge of her nose, she hailed a taxi and drove to the meeting place. Ethan was waiting for her in a half-empty cafe, sitting on a velvet quilted sofa. When the man stood up to greet Linda, she even whistled. The guy was about 2 meters tall and very well built. He was about 2 meters tall and very well built. He had muscles under his shirt that the thin fabric couldn't hide. Hi. Ethan smiled broadly, hugging Linda. The woman immediately noticed that the perfume of her new acquaintance was very expensive, multifaceted, and amazing. Hi. Linda smiled back. To be honest, I didn't believe you were coming until the last minute, the guy admitted. It was hard to understand in my head what such a woman forgot on this site. I have not registered so long ago, but I have already had time to study the contingent. Yeah, Linda grinned. And what kind of contingent is that? A symbol maker, divorcees with a trailer, as they like to call it nowadays, who try to place their girls from Central Asian guests with someone better, desperate women in years. Yeah, lots of them. Who are you looking for, if it's no secret? Lida studied the menu thoughtfully, glancing at Ethan with one eye. What if I'm a dishwasher or a divorcee too? No, Linda. You're definitely not a dishwasher, I can tell. And you didn't pick the most expensive cafe. They usually want the best restaurant in town. I went on a date with one of them, and I almost maxed out my credit card. I'm not ready to be a sponsor. The thought of a relationship for money disgusts me. I'm divorced myself. I just need a man with a soul, who will listen to my whining, stroke my head, and say that everything will be fine. It motivates me a lot. If you even have a kid, that's okay, I'm willing to accept. I don't have my own, but I've always wanted one. My wife was a real piece of work. All she thought about was looks and money. I don't know how I got married, but my parents insisted. All they wanted was grandchildren. So I went along with it. Anne didn't want kids at all. In the end, she's off to Dubai to live with some Arab. I never really had much love for her. She had her good moments, so I'm grateful to her. You are? To be honest, I don't know what I want. I don't want to lead you on. I'm married. I've been married to my husband for almost 15 years. We have a daughter, Mia. Lately, I've realized I don't feel anything for Michael, and neither does he for me. We didn't marry for love, we just wanted to support each other. Over time, feelings did not develop. Just as friends, we live as relatives, good acquaintances. So I decided to register in the app. I didn't think it would come to a meeting, especially so quickly. But don't think I'm a cheater or a traitor, although my conscience is eating me up. It's all Isabella's fault, my friend. She put the idea into my head a few months ago. I didn't see it that way then. I realize now that Michael's been a real pain in the arse. Isabella told me that a woman without love is unhappy. And you immediately decided to look for love on a dating site? Ethan laughed. No, I do not think you are some bad. 1,000 women are unhappy in marriage. Someone is beaten, someone is humiliated, not appreciated, and everyone is not loved. I agree with your friend, but the same thing happens to men. It is from the outside we are so tough, independent, and unapproachable, but in the heart of all want this love, at least understanding. But even that is often unattainable. I registered myself because I realize I can't go on living like this, and I see how your face reflects everything inside. I'm not pulling you into bed, just chatting. Finding a soulmate is a breakthrough. Sometimes you just want to talk to someone warm and bright, and there's no one to talk to. Thank you for understanding me and not criticizing me. I'm sick of it. It's a mental emptiness. I realized at 35 that I'd never been in love, and I couldn't tell anyone what was going on inside me. Mia wouldn't understand me, she's young. Isabella, we're too different. Michael, when his business started to fail, he shut down. He won't even listen to me. It's all about money. Money, money, money in his mind and in his conversation. You work by yourself? Yes, but at home. I'm an estimator. The orders are stable, but I don't make much money. Especially after the sale of the flat, I've had to tighten my belt. I paid for a trip to a language camp. It took my whole stash. But I can't deprive my child of joy, especially when she has her first love there. And the boy went. His father flatly refused to sponsor the trip, and I couldn't stand to see her cry. You did the right thing. Especially when you're a teenager, you don't want to disappoint a child who loses faith in her parents. Mia's not like that. She and I are very close, but there's still a generational conflict. What do you do? Me? Ethan squinted. I have my own flower business. You have seen, probably around the city shops fan. Are they yours? Surprised Linda. Yes. And by the way, I completely forgot. Ethan nodded to the waiter who brought their order. In a minute, the boy brought a huge bouquet of pink peonies of a wonderful color, which Linda had never even seen before. Sorry, I asked the guys to put them in water. Wow. These are for me. Linda was genuinely surprised, inhaling the fragrance of the flowers. How beautiful. I've only seen them in pictures. Don't tell me that your husband doesn't give you flowers. Squinted Ethan. Only duty bouquets on the 8th of March and birthday. Somehow we got it that way. By the way, it was because of flowers, and I thought that in my life something wrong. Michael said himself, there's no romance. Who's supposed to create it? Me? That's not a fair game. If you want, I could send you flowers every day. Just like that. Although Michael probably wouldn't understand that. No, he wouldn't. I'd love to get flowers like that, but I don't know how to explain it to him, but I'll take it. Don't worry. I'll think of something. I love peonies. I'm glad I pleased you. Smiled the man. By the way, do you want to go for a walk after the cafe? Maybe to the seafront? I've never been there since the renovation, but I used to walk there a lot. I'd love to. Linda nodded. You can see my old flat from there, by the way. We lived by the river, and I used to walk there with Mia. I haven't been since we moved. That's great. Linda looked with admiration at the bouquet, which she placed in a vase on the dresser. Michael believed her fiction that the flowers had been sent by a customer as a token of gratitude for 5 years of cooperation. Linda breathed a sigh of relief. She was already ready to listen to a profanity-laced stream of words, but she got around it. Ethan did not go out of her head. During the walk, Linda had become convinced that this man was not only comfortable to be around, but also had a lot to talk about. He could support any topic, even her boring estimates. And in general, all communication was as if they had known each other for 1,000 years. At first, Linda even thought they had, because Ethan still seemed familiar to her. But she couldn't have known him. The man had been born in another city and had moved here when Linda was already married. Perhaps his face had just appeared in the business bulletins around town, because Ethan's shops were quite popular. As she made herself more comfortable in the bed, Linda fell asleep. Michael was snoring away from her by then. In the morning, she heard the doorbell ring. The door was opened by Michael. He was already awake and cooking something in the kitchen. Lida was in no hurry to get up. She only heard someone come in. Did someone come to Michael's house? She thought through sleep. If it was for me, he would have called me. All right, I'll sleep a little longer. But the dream had passed. Linda reluctantly got out of bed, threw on some clothes, and quietly left the room. In the hallway, she immediately saw the familiar shoes. They were Isabella's. Linda was embarrassed. So she's the one who came. Why didn't Michael call me? Where are they? Linda froze and listened. There were quiet voices coming from the kitchen. The door was closed. The woman was surprised, but then she thought she just didn't want to be woken up. If Isabella wasn't in a hurry, she could have waited for her friend to get up. Except that she rarely came in without calling. That made Linda a little wary. Immediately, the thought that something was wrong popped into her head. Linda tiptoed to the door to hear what the conversation was about. It wasn't her habit to eavesdrop, but curiosity got the better of her. When are you going to tell her? Isabella's voice was quiet but excited. Apparently, she was pacing the kitchen. Isabella, don't rush things. I'm thinking, but I don't know how. I don't want to traumatize her. Linda's a dear person to me, after all. Dear? When you put the baby in me, did it bother you at all? You can see my belly soon enough. How am I supposed to explain all this? I may have been mean to Linda by sleeping with you, but I don't want to cheat on her any further. Calm down. I'll think of something. In fact, why don't you just tell her you've had artificial insemination? You guys had a conversation about it once. What if the baby looks like you? Do I have to tell her that you're a noble donor? Don't be ridiculous. You have to come clean. Isabella, she'll kick me out in a heartbeat. I don't want to leave at all. I'm comfortable here. I don't love my wife as a woman, but I respect her. We have a daughter. Mia will hate me. He respects her. Who's been whispering things in my ear, burning with desire? Is that how you respect your wife? I'm sorry, I've never been married, so I might not know something. Don't be sarcastic. We were both wrong. Yes, I like you a lot, more than I like you. But I'm not ready to leave my family. I'll give you money for the baby. Don't worry about it. I've given so much already. I can't even give Mia pocket money. But you're welcome. But don't pressurize me, otherwise I'll just say that you've made it all up for your own purposes and then don't count on anything at all. Oh, you scared me. Michael, by now we can do a DNA test and prove it's your baby. Don't be ridiculous. What century are we living in? Anyway, it's up to you how you explain this to Linda. If you wait any longer, I'll do it myself. She is such a person, she will forgive you if you confess honestly. The longer we hide it, the worse it will turn out. Linda stood there, trying not to move. What she had heard did not make sense to her. God, she bit her lip and slowly, trying not to make a sound, headed back into the room. So Michael and Isabella were sleeping together. Not only that, but she's pregnant. This is crazy. When did they have time? Always like cat and dog, and now. And anyway, how did Isabella get her hands on Michael? He's not her type. Not at all. What a friend. How could she do that? I can understand Michael. Even now he's admitted he has no feelings for me. But Isabella, I've always trusted her. Even more than I trusted myself. What am I supposed to do now? Should we all raise her together? It's a load of bollocks. On the one hand, I'm happy for Isabella. It'll be good for her. But it's my husband's child and I can't just stand by and say nothing. What do they expect me to do? Just accept it. They're targeting the wrong person. They think I'm a wuss and a pussy? I'll give them hell. Linda slammed the door noisily to attract attention. She immediately walked towards the kitchen. Michael was waiting for her at the door, a look of surprise mixed with fear on his face. Isabella peered timidly from the table. Why are you making so much noise? Michael asked, trying to kiss his wife on the cheek. Yes, it's a drat. Linda replied grudgingly. Isabella, what are you doing here? What are you doing here so early? And on your day off? Yes, I'm on my way back from a visit, replied sweetly. I was close. I thought I'd stop by for a morning coffee. And Michael said you were still asleep, so we're just sitting here waiting for you to wake up. You gave us such a fright when you slammed the door. Scared when you have something to hide. Linda grimly decided and headed for the coffee machine. Isabella and Michael looked at each other in surprise. It didn't escape Linda's notice, and neither did Michael's slight squint or the tilt of his head that meant no. What are you talking about? He asked his wife. Yes, they say that, don't they? Linda laughed. Why are you both so tense, or are you really hiding something? Oh, right. I've got it all figured out. Linda looked at both of them enigmatically. Isabella turned a little pale, and Michael's cheekbones turned jaundiced. Come on, confess. You want to surprise me for my birthday, don't you? It's only a couple of weeks away. Why didn't I realize? She laughed. Isabella laughed nervously, and Michael laughed back. Man, I can never hide anything from you. Isabella said, We're really going to surprise you. At least she's not lying, Linda thought, staring at her friend. And she's not even ashamed. It's okay, I'll get you guys. And I blamed myself for starting to talk to Ethan, because hypocrisy is rampant here. And I'm still playing the naive fool. Isabella, look. You're getting fat, Linda said casually, sitting down next to her friend. For as long as I can remember, I've always been like a pole, but here my cheeks have grown, and I've even got a belly. You're eating sweets out of nervousness, aren't you? You think so? Isabella clutched her stomach worriedly, and immediately raised her hands to her cheeks. Not that, it's noticeable. Linda, I thought I was overdoing it. The scales are still broken at home, and it's not clear whether I've got fat or not. But the mirror was telling the truth. Yeah, I started taking pills, and I guess I had a reaction. What kind of pills? Linda squinted. Oh, just some vitamins the doctor prescribed. I've been walking around and I've been getting headaches. She said I'm overworked. I need to boost my immune system. And the vitamins are specific, I guess. Yeah, it happens. Linda smiled. I thought you were stressed out and you were doing it. You haven't told me anything lately. Yeah, I don't have time. I've got a lot of work to do. I'm sorry, Linda. Okay, guys, thanks for the coffee. I won't interrupt anymore. Are you leaving already? Linda was surprised. We haven't talked in 5 minutes. Yeah, it's time to go home. But Michael and I have also settled our big question. Isabella looked at Michael reproachfully. It's not a good surprise, but we'll do it anyway. You don't know what we've cooked up anyway. When Isabella left, Linda thought for a long time about what to do. She wanted to teach her unfaithful husband and friend a lesson, but she couldn't think of anything. She had already decided for herself that she would not forgive them, at least not yet. With Michael, the only option was divorce. Linda was so tired of her gray and boring life that she just didn't want to drag it out any longer. The news of Isabella's pregnancy was the last straw in meeting Ethan. Linda hadn't considered a relationship with the man yet. Yes, she liked him a lot, but she didn't want to run into his arms after the first meeting. And what if he turned out to be a cheat or took advantage of her and immediately abandoned her? Such a scenario seemed extremely likely. But Linda was ready to take the risk. After all, she had nothing to lose. But to sleep together, even if they then immediately disperse, at least for one night she would be happy. But she didn't want to just silently apply. Mia would be back soon. How do I explain everything to her? She's a smart girl, she knows where babies come from, and she doesn't like Isabella. I didn't want the girl to overreact to her father's behavior. She loved him, and here. After dinner, Linda sat down on the sofa with her husband and pressed herself against his shoulder. What are you doing? Michael shuddered, not expecting his wife to show tenderness. Michael. Linda said mysteriously. A plan had formed in her head. There's something I need to tell you. What is it? Her husband became wary. I don't even know how to begin. So tell me what you have to say. What's the point in dragging it out? We're not strangers. Michael, tell me, do you love me? Here we go. Of course I love you. Where are you going to go? You're my wife. Do you love Mia? What kind of stupid questions are these? She's my child. But then I want to make you happy. Linda's eyes sparkled. Michael, I'm pregnant. You and I are going to have another baby. What did you say? Michael turned pale and even recoiled from his wife. What? It's impossible? Why is it impossible? Aren't you excited? I always thought you wanted a son. Do you know the sex already? But we're not even sleeping together. When did this happen? I went to the doctor yesterday. To be honest, I didn't even think I was late because I was pregnant. I thought it was just my cycle being off. Linda, we're not ready for a second baby right now. You know our money's tight. Michael was visibly nervous. He seemed to be calculating in his head how much it would cost him to support both children, his wife's and his mistress's. I know this is going to sound crazy, but we have to make an interruption. What termination, Michael? Linda had tears in her eyes. I'm 4 months pregnant. You can't do this. Linda, I can't believe you didn't know before. I can't believe how irresponsible you've been. You know we don't have the money. We don't have the flat. And Mia is at that age. It's impossible. We have to think of something. What are you going to do, Michael? I don't understand you. It's your child. You're suggesting I do a clandestine abortion, which will end up killing him and me. Why would it be clandestine? Why would we die? I'll arrange with a doctor I know. They'll do it at the hospital. They do abort at this term if it's life-threatening. But I'm not in any danger. It's just a formality, Linda. Misha jumped up from the sofa. You don't understand what's going on. No, Michael, no, I'm not doing any interruptions. Fine, don't do it. But then we'll put the baby in an orphanage after it's born. Are you out of your mind? Linda screamed. What orphanage? What is wrong with you, Michael? It's your baby. I'm not so sure about that. What? Linda squinted. What do you mean you're not sure? Linda, you and I don't have a close relationship. How could you get pregnant? Are you suspecting me or something? Shame on you. The timing fits. It was right after your birthday. Don't tell me you don't remember. Oh yeah, you were drunk. I remember everything. My husband grumbled. How can you do that, just once? It's just that God wants us to have a baby. Don't you understand? I don't care. Michael clutched his head. Don't you get it? A second child is a huge expense. I can support him on my own. Linda pressed her lips together. What are you talking about? My salary is enough for me and him. Mia's on your budget. Or are you giving up on her too? Or do you have something or someone that takes the lion's share of your income? Michael, I know exactly how you're doing. And I'm not asking where you're spending a few thousand a month to bypass the family budget. And don't lie to me about business. Do you take cash withdrawals and put them somewhere else? I don't know, maybe you have a stash in your mattress and you prefer to save a little bit in notes. I'm not getting into this, but you know, if you keep this up, I'm just going to leave. And you will never, ever, ever see your children again. That's it. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Linda, we need to calm down. You just shocked me with this news. I need to come to my senses. Where are you going? Linda followed her husband. I don't know. I need to go for a walk, mumbled Michael as he put on his trainers. Aha, Linda triumphed to herself. 100% to Isabella. I wonder what he'll say to her. It's a game changer. How will Michael get out of this? She hit the big one, the money. The funny thing is, Isabella's not going to let it go. She's going to get her alimony anyway. And she's going to make it look like such a scandal. And that bastard hasn't even mentioned a second child, even though he could have told me all about it. Well, I'm not really interested. The main thing is that he's twitching and Isabella's going to worry. Man. I feel sorry for her. Pregnant women shouldn't be nervous. I don't care. They weren't thinking about me. Why should I think about them now? In fact, I'd really like to see Ethan right now. Linda texted the man. He replied almost immediately, and Linda asked him to call her back. Is something wrong? Ethan asked worriedly. Ethan. Yes, something happened, Linda sighed. I think I'm getting a divorce. Oh my God, how can that be? Yesterday everything was not so categorical. Or did you make such a decision after talking to me? I didn't think I was capable of such a thing. No, you didn't. Linda laughed. It's different. Why don't we meet tonight? I'd love to. I'll be off in about 2 hours. Would that be convenient? Yeah, let's meet there then. Okay. Linda was standing outside the cafe when Ethan drove up. He flashed his headlights at her, and the woman got into his car. The man kissed her on the cheek, which sent a shiver through Linda's body. Well, what was so interesting? He asked. You know, I found out by accident. Well, remember I told you about my friend Isabella? That's the one who persuaded you to start paying attention to other men? Yes, Linda nodded and took a deep breath. Anyway, she's pregnant with Michael's baby. What? Ethan was surprised. I thought you said they couldn't stand each other. That's what I mean. I do not know when and where it all happened. But she's already 5 months pregnant. And apparently after the housewarming party, they were having a nice chat in the kitchen. I guess that's when they hit it off. I don't know the details. I overheard them talking in the kitchen today. I also blamed myself for thinking about cheating. Isabella wants Michael to tell me everything, but he won't. The funny thing is, I told him this afternoon that I'm pregnant too. You should have seen the look on his face. He said all sorts of things to me. Then he went off to Isabella's, probably. He wasn't even back yet when I left. They're both nervous now. Are you pregnant? Ethan looked scared. No, of course not. Michael and I do not sleep at all. I convinced him that all this happened after his birthday, when he was drunk and doesn't remember anything. Oh, I see. So what, you're getting a divorce right away? What's the point of dragging this out? I've put up with this whole life together before, but now I'm sick of it. I'm betrayed by 2 people who are close to me at once. I feel sorry for Mia, but I'll explain everything to her. I just don't want her to hate her father. Now I'm thinking about how to get revenge on Isabella. Revenge is a dangerous thing, Ethan said thoughtfully. But I don't even want to take revenge, but to teach her a lesson. Now I feel betrayed and angry with her. But objectively, given her attitude toward the children, she has already punished herself. If I loved Michael, then yeah. Now I'm just angry. But I know that he will not abandon the child, and they will not have a relationship anyway. Michael's a decent guy, and he'd give his last penny. Even the way he reacted to my pregnancy today, it's only natural. I can only imagine how he was calculating the costs in his head. What's the best way to teach Isabella a lesson? I don't know. She loves money too, she loves it so much. But I can't do anything about it. And as far as I know, she doesn't have a man at the moment. She could at least try to steal him away. That's sneaky. You don't look like you're capable of anything like that. Listen, what if you and I put on a show? You say Isabella's into men and money. Let me meet her, start courting her. And when things get serious, you'll accidentally steal me away from her. Are you serious? Linda laughed. It's all a bit childish. It's quite serious. I'm attracted to women. But not every one will be to my liking. But what if Isabella does? She's beautiful. What then? Who would be the fool? Me again. I won't like her, even if she's 3 times beautiful. It's not about beauty. She's a rotten person. I'll never look at someone like that in my life. So you're worried about me getting stolen? I'm not worried. Linda blushed. It's just that I really like you and I'm sorry to give you away. Linda, you don't have to give me away. I'm not a thing, and I'm not in over my head. And I'll tell you right off the bat, as an adult to an adult, I really like you. That's where it's appropriate to say you like me. I'm not counting on anything, and I won't pressure you for anything, but I just want to help you as a friend. Can we be friends now? My life is boring, and a play like this will at least give me some fun. I don't know, Linda thought. I don't really like it. How do you see it? Isabella knows a trick when she sees one. Well, you can imagine it for me. I'm a good actor. My ex-wife taught me. She used to do this kind of tour. Okay, Linda waved her hand. You got it. When do we start? Tomorrow. Give me her address and a picture of her. I already have some ideas. Linda was looking at pictures on her phone and showed Ethan Isabella. Yes, she's beautiful, the man nodded. But you can tell she's a predator. I've always avoided her. Shall we get started? I'll visit her tomorrow. Michael was acting aggressively. Linda fought with him several times in the evening. Apparently, Isabella said something that really pissed off her husband. But there was no way for Linda to find out. She preferred to lock herself in Mia's room and not cross paths with her husband. She took the bouquet of peonies with her. On Sunday, Michael left for work, saying he was very busy. Linda called Ethan and asked if he would be implementing his plan today. The man promised to let her know later what had been done. In the evening, they met again. Ethan looked cheerful. Yes, she's a real piece of work, your girlfriend, laughed the man. Tell me, come on, don't keep me waiting. Linda was impatient and curious. In general, took her today in his shop a luxurious bouquet of 101 roses. Women are usually crazy about those. You've seen them, right? They come in these beautiful buckets, red as blood. It seemed to me that Isabella liked them just the way they are. So I drove with all this stuff to her house. I waited for a long time, like 2 hours. I didn't even know if she'd come out or not. And then a miracle happened. I was distracted by the phone, and out of the corner of my eye, I noticed that a woman was coming out of the entrance. I looked closely, and it was her. Well, I immediately got out of the car with these flowers, caught up with her, and stuck her this bucket. She looked at me with her eyes bulging, standing there, not understanding what was going on. And I said to her, "Girl, I'm sorry, but I've got a problem here. My girlfriend left me, I brought her flowers, but she refused. She found someone else. And I don't want the flowers to go to waste. So I sat down to look for someone to give them to. And as luck would have it, only mothers with children up to their grandmothers. I wanted to give them to a beautiful girl. And then you come along. So I almost fell down. I realized at once that I was in the right place. Don't be impertinent, take them." "What about her?" Linda was surprised. At first she was confused, of course, but then she squinted and took the flowers, saying I should take them home. And she thanked me. So I waited for her to come out again and persistently approached her. I said, "Girl, you'll forgive me, but I'm conquered. I've never seen such a beauty. Would you consider it an honor to meet her? I've got a reservation and I'm missing a table at the restaurant." So she said yes. I could tell she was hesitant, but something clicked. "And you've been to the restaurant?" Linda asked. "Yes, I took her there. We had dinner, had a very nice conversation. She even told me she was pregnant. She said her husband had left her and found someone else. Well, we mourned over our common grief, chatted about this and that. I asked her out again. I said, a baby's not a problem. I've always wanted one. And since I liked her so much, I'd be happy to continue getting to know her. And she said yes, of course. Naturally. She especially liked my car. I didn't drive my crossover, but another sporty one. Well, Isabella's eyes were burning. It's obvious that she had all the prospects in mind. So now it's just a matter of making her fall in love with him." "Well, here, unlikely to succeed," Linda said disappointedly. "Isabella has never fallen in love with anyone. She is a purely rational person. She is guided only by benefits. But she dreams of love. So let's give her that love. Well, I don't know how you'll do it, of course. Just trust me." With that, Ethan pulled Linda to him and kissed her. The woman's heart pounded desperately. "What are you doing?" She was embarrassed, but she didn't pull away. "It's a sign that I'm serious, and that you have no doubts. In the meantime, I suggest we have dinner somewhere. Hopefully not Isabella, not your husband. We won't be caught." They chose a quiet, cozy restaurant. For the rest of the evening, Linda kept her eyes on Ethan. She felt everything inside her become airy and light. This had never happened to her before. Linda was working on her computer when her doorbell rang unexpectedly. Opening the door, the woman saw an extremely agitated friend. "Isabella, what's wrong? Do you need to know? I can't hold it in any longer. Are you alone?" "Yeah, Michael's at work, and Mia's not flying until tonight. Come on in." "Linda, I'm gone." Isabella rolled her eyes dreamily. "Missing where?" Linda squinted, realizing what she was getting at. I met a man last week, and it's like a fairy tale. He gave me a huge bouquet, like the most gorgeous thing ever. Oh, you've got something to be happy about. You've had a lifetime of flowers, but what's the use?" "No, Linda, this is different. He just walked up to me in the street and handed me these gorgeous flowers. I thought it was a joke at first, but he was persistent. He'd just broken up with his girlfriend. He asked me out on a date. I felt so bad. I said yes. I just fell head over heels in love with him. Name's Ethan. He's got his own business, sells flowers, drives a luxury car, owns his own house, and is divorced. But none of it matters. It's the first time I've ever felt like my man was destined to be my man." "Yeah, okay, did you have a relationship with him before?" "No, that's the thing. He's so gallant. He doesn't push. He doesn't rush. He's so handsome. He's very interesting. I'd love to have him in my apartment. You should see how handsome he is. But I'm afraid of scaring him off. It's always like that with me. Once we sleep together, they run away, or it stays that way. I won't let that happen. And it's not about money at all, believe it or not. I'm really happy for you. Linda hugged her friend, happy that Ethan had managed to fulfill his promise. Listen, can we come to your birthday party together? I really want to show him to you. Would Michael mind? Michael? Isabella was surprised. What's he got to do with it? Well, he doesn't like you very much, and now you're bringing a date. You know, an extra mouth at the table. He's a cheapskate who counts every penny. Oh, that Michael of yours. If you want, my Ethan will organize a whole banquet for you. I can ask him. Don't. You'll really scare the man. A banquet is not a bouquet, especially not yours, but your friends. It's okay. I'm setting the table, not Michael. So come by, sure, I'd love to meet your Ethan. Great. Isabella kissed Linda on the cheek. We owe you an awesome gift. Isabella, don't charge him, please. What are you talking about? What's he got to do with it? I wasn't thinking he owes me a bouquet. It's no problem at all. I can buy my own presents. Besides, it was my quarterly bonus. Okay, you got me. Linda smiled. You're getting chubbier and chubbier, by the way. Are you taking all your vitamins? Oh, don't say anything. Isabella blushed. I'll be pregnant soon. Well, I'm off. I still have things to do. See you later. Lita locked the door behind her friend and laughed. She immediately dialed Ethan. Ethan. Linda laughed into the phone. That's it, the fish is hooked. Now Isabella was at my place. She swears that she fell in love with you to death. And everything's going smoothly and sweetly between you two. Linda, I hope you're not jealous. We never had a thing with her, and we never will. Yeah, I know. She told me all about it. She can't wait, but she's afraid she's going to miss out. She's holding on by her wits. I don't know what you're doing to her, but it's awesome. I'm expecting you two for your birthday this weekend. We'll do it then. I've already drawn up the divorce papers. All I have to do is hand them to Michael and put Isabella in her place. That's great. What are you doing today? Mia's coming back today. I'm going to meet her and I want to tell her everything so she doesn't get the shock of the holidays. Okay, I won't interrupt. I'll just keep working on your friend. By late afternoon, Linda was on edge. Michael took his time getting home from work, but that was to her advantage. She wanted to talk to her daughter alone. Mia was brought in by Oscar's parents. The girl flew into the flat, excited, flushed. She kissed her mother and chattered non-stop. When the girl had calmed down a little, Linda called her into the kitchen for tea. Mia, I need to tell you something, she began delicately. Mom, just don't start lecturing me. I'm not pregnant. I behaved properly and Oscar and I are fine. Thank you so much for helping me with the trip. I would have suffered so much. Emma Walsh has a thing for him too. And Oscar is such a wingman. Baby, this isn't about you, even though you had something to do with it. What is it? Don't tell me Dad's broke again, and we have to move again. No, I mean Dad's broke, but in a completely different matter. What's that? Mia's eyes popped out. Mia, you're an adult, and you're not being unreasonable. Please just accept it and don't despair. What's the matter? Did he file for divorce? No, Mia, I'm getting a divorce. What? My daughter's eyes widened. Why would you do that? I'm sick of him. I'll keep it quiet. Anyway, Aunt Isabella's pregnant with Michael's baby, and they're keeping it from me. And I told your dad I was pregnant too, but it's not true. I just wanted to annoy him. Now he's hardly ever home. Of course he does, 2 pregnant women. Mum, we have to do something. I'm already doing something. The issue with Dad is settled. I'm filing for divorce. I can put up with a lot of things, but not this hypocrisy. You can talk to him any way you want. I won't interfere. After all, what happened is between me and him. It has nothing to do with you. And I'm asking you to stay out of it. If you come back from the divorce and you're back from him, he'll be devastated. Michael is a good man and a good father. I just don't want to live with him anymore. Wait, you're just giving him to Aunt Isabella. What about love? What love, Mia? Linda sighed. We never had any, just routine and comfort. Let him live as he likes. Isabella doesn't need him, but we can't let her get away with it. Well, darling, don't worry. The plan to punish her is already in motion. Let's hear more about it. Mia's moving in closer. What plan? Mia, I met a man. Linda's blushing deep red. A man. Mum, you're all red. Don't tell me you're in love. I guess I am. Linda smiled. Who's the man? His name is Ethan. Very nice. You'll see him on Saturday. Is he coming here? Mia collapsed. Yes, but you're going to have to play along with me. You see, Ethan was the one who figured out how to teach Isabella a lesson. Now he's doing everything he can to make her fall in love with him, and he's succeeding. Isabella came running this morning to tell me she's in love. Okay, I don't get it. If they're in love and you like him, how is that even possible? It's an act, Mia. Linda patted her daughter on the head and told her plan. Well, Mum, I didn't expect this from you. Look, don't be sorry. But Dad, I don't even know how he's going to act. He can do what he wants to do. I don't care anymore. When Michael returned home from work, his daughter showed nothing of herself. She was a little more reserved with her father. There weren't many guests. Linda set the table, put on a beautiful dress. Mia hung balloons and tinsel everywhere. Michael tried to pretend that he was happy with what was going on, but from time to time he glanced at his wife, trying to see her protruding belly. Naturally, he saw nothing, which made him even angrier. Finally, the doorbell rang. It was Isabella. Ethan stayed behind, holding a huge bouquet of peonies. Here we are. Isabella was glowing with happiness. Meet Ethan, the man of my dreams. Michael stood red as a cancer and looked hatefully at Isabella, at her companion, and at the flowers. But Linda quickly tried to ease the tension and invited everyone to the table. Mia watched Ethan with interest, occasionally glancing at her mother, and smiled meaningfully. It was obvious that her daughter liked the man. When the fun was in full swing, Linda noticed that neither Isabella nor her husband were at the table. She approached Ethan and invited him out on the balcony to admire the view. It looks like everything is going according to plan. Ethan smiled. I saw Isabella go to the bathroom and Michael followed her, and they've been gone for about 10 minutes. Apparently they're working things out. All we have to do is wait. I warned Mia, and most of the guests are gone. The ones that are left aren't really interested in our marital bliss. So can I kiss you? Linda smiled, and without waiting for her consent, he gently took her chin and pulled her to him. Linda didn't know how long the kiss lasted, but it seemed infinitely long. She felt even more pleasure at the anticipation of being caught like this right now. Linda. Michael almost shouted. What are you doing? Isabella's voice broke into a shriek. We. The woman looked closely at her husband and friend, pulling away from Ethan's lips but remaining in his arms. Kissing, can't you see? We can see that. Michael was outraged. I'm asking what the hell is going on here. And I'm wondering. Isabella glared at Ethan and her friend. How can I explain it to you? Ethan began confused. Love is happening here. What else can you call it on sight? Yes, Linda smiled. I would call it that too. No, you've got a nerve. Michael continued to shout. Not only are you doing this, but you're making fun of us. Linda, are you ashamed to kiss the first guy you see in the marital home? And you, honorable man, are you so drunk that you mistook your woman for mine? No, sir, Ethan mocked him. You confused your woman with mine. What are you talking about? Michael shouted, pulling away from Isabella, who was ready to lunge at the embracing couple. About what's under Isabella's breasts. Linda squinted at him. Who exactly? Isabella and Michael looked at each other. The woman went dramatically pale and the man blushed even more. Did you know everything? Isabella asked her friend, pressing her lips together. Yes, she nodded. For a couple of weeks now. You came in the morning and I overheard everything. But why, then, didn't you charge me with anything? What would I say and what would I hear in return? I wanted you to realize what a despicable thing I'd done. But you never even loved Michael. Yeah, but he's still my husband, and you had no right to use him. Wait a minute, Michael interjected. You mean Linda was aware of everything and acted so calmly? And now what, like your baby? There is no baby, Michael, Linda replied. I made the whole thing up to see how you'd behave. And you, believe me, proved that I made the right decision from the beginning. The right decision? I questioned my husband. Yes, we're divorcing you. All the documents are ready. I'll tell you right away that with Mia, you see, I will not interfere. She is already aware of everything and will live then with me, then with you. Thank your daughter for not hating you after all this. Divorce? Michael's eyes widened. Yeah, what did you want? I don't want to live with you anymore. I realize you're not going to be so comfortable right now. Linda sneered. But it's better for everyone. All right. Well, make it clear to me, what does Ethan have to do with this? Linda, even the whole situation does not give you the right to hang on my man's neck. Are you Ethan? Are you out of your mind? It's nothing personal. Linda asked me to help her. Wait, Isabella wrinkled her forehead. You mean you two know each other? Well, yes, nodded Ethan. And not just acquainted. I can already say with certainty that I love this woman. The blood rushed to Isabella's face. She finally realized what had really happened. Tears spurted from her eyes. She pushed Michael away and ran away. Not a minute later, the front door slammed. Michael remained standing in the doorway. Linda walked past, leading Ethan by the hand. Mia looked on in bewilderment at all that was going on in the company of a couple of the remaining guests. You've got to be kidding me, was all her daughter said. Linda pressed and pressed the bell, but no one came to the door. Then the woman started pounding on the door with her fist, a dark suspicion creeping in. Finally, something inside clicked and the door opened. Why did you come? Isabella asked in a tired voice. She had lost a lot of weight, but under her pink bodysuit she could see a well-shaped belly. Isabella, I need to talk to you. Linda smiled guiltily. She hadn't spoken to her friend for 3 months since her birthday. Well, come in now that you're here. Isabella moved aside, letting her guest inside. Isabella. Linda sighed heavily and looked her friend straight in the eye. I came to apologize. For what? The woman grinned. For that play. I don't care. It was my own fault. I should be the one apologizing to you. Your husband made a baby for me. How's he doing, by the way? Not so good, to be honest. I haven't seen him since the divorce. Mia sleeps over at Michael's every day. Thanks to her. Without his daughter, he'd be out of his mind. How's he treating you? Well, he puts money on my card. But I'm going back. I don't want anything from him. I make a good living myself. I decided, as you advised, to have a child for myself. I'm being punished by karma for my consumerist attitude to life. The baby, you know, Linda, I didn't want it at first. I thought I'd get rid of it, and then I used it to manipulate Michael. And then I met Ethan, and it was like I had no more real feelings. It changed everything in my head. How is he, by the way? Good, he gave you flowers, but I left them in the car. I didn't know if you'd open them or not. I'll get them. Don't. Isabella smiled faintly. Isabella, it's from the heart. We collected the bouquet especially for you. No, you don't understand, laughed her friend. I'm allergic. Even indoor plants all move to my dad. I don't want to see the baby. Really? Linda was surprised. You poor thing. Linda held her friend tightly and felt her shaking with sobs. What are you doing? Questioned Lyda. How not to cry. Isabella sobbed. I did not think that you are such a kind aunt. Well, how can such a trash like me forgive and even hug here to stand? And don't forget I'm hormonal. And both women laughed. Ira, when's the baby due? Linda asked, munching on the cake that her friend had baked in the morning. It's delicious. I never realized you were such a good cook. Thank you, Isabella smiled. While I'm at home, I'm learning. And how will the baby look at me later? Yes, in 3 weeks the doctor says so. Oh, I'm so scared. What's there to be afraid of? 1 million women give birth, and you're no worse. But I'm old. Have you even heard that the government wants to raise the age of old age to 36? So you don't even fall into that category. What are you talking about? Isabella looked at Linda suspiciously. Yes, it's too early to say, but the woman hesitated. I haven't even told Ethan anything yet. But I took a test this morning and I got 2 stripes. Oh, come on. Wow, you guys are fast. You've only known each other for a little while. How long? 4 months. Yeah, I know it's not that long. But we're adults. We don't have time to make mistakes, and look. I can feel myself drawn to him. And he's attracted to me. You told me yourself that without love a woman is unhappy. And now I feel loved and needed and wanted. I really had no idea it could be like this. What I saw with Michael and before him, all the men before him weren't serious. And then I was struck by lightning. Yeah, I went through something like that with Ethan myself. It's a different kind of energy. I can't imagine how his ex-wife could pass up such happiness for some guy in Dubai. Lucky you, baby. Of course I'm jealous. I can't argue with that. There's still something about Ethan. No, it's not love, of course. But I had a huge crush on him. I've never felt anything like it either. You know, I'm done now, and I'm done now, and I'm done. I've got a lot more feelings to experience now. I know what it's like to be a mother, but soon I'll really understand. I'm happy for you, mate. Lita kissed her friend on the forehead. And anyway, it doesn't matter what happened there. Let's be optimistic about the future. By the way, your son will be my Mia's brother. Do you realize that? Shit. You do, don't you? Isabella was surprised. I hadn't even thought of that. So we're related now? Yes, we are. Linda laughed, and Mia will not be laughing now. 2 brothers to bring up at once. Mia's going to be so happy she's going to whistle away. You and I can manage on our own. All right, Isabella, I'll go. I'm going to stop by the gynecologist to make sure the test is accurate. And then I'll let Ethan know. Let me know too. Don't forget. I love you, Linda. You're the best woman in the world. And I love you. I don't care what happened. Linda sat in the dark kitchen of Ethan's city flat. They usually went to the country house for the weekend. It was more convenient to live here to get to school faster. Although the girl often stayed at her father's house, but Linda still thought of her first and foremost. Ethan didn't mind. He and Mia quickly found a common language. The girl even showed an active interest in floristry and often came to the central shop fan to learn this craft. Linda clutched tightly in her hands a sheet of paper with a picture attached to it. When the light came on in the hallway, the woman flinched. Ethan also flinched when he entered the kitchen, turned on the light, and saw his woman sitting in a chair. Linda, he said, pretending to hold his heart. Why are you sitting in the dark? Why are you home anyway? Mia said you 2 were going out tonight. Mia and Oscar went on a bike ride. Oh, for a bike ride. They're closing out the season. I went on a business trip and I'm back now. Your own thing? What's that, I wonder? Ethan squinted. And it does not explain sitting in the dark. What is this paper you have? And this, Linda caught up. Ethan, they told me to give it to you. Jesus, Linda, why is the tone so mournful? You scare me? Who told to give? Stork. What kind of name is that? I've never heard it before. And you look at it, you'll recognize it immediately. Lita handed the man the ultrasound results. He ran the text several times with his eyes, twirled the image, and looked silently at Linda. Nothing to say? Linda opened her eyes. I can't read handwriting. Ethan blushed. It's from the hospital, I get it. An X-ray or something. Jesus, are you serious? Linda laughed. X-ray. Vanya, I'm pregnant. You and I are going to have a baby. I've heard that somewhere before. Michael was also played by you. Just so you know, there's nothing to avenge. You're a fool. Lita gently stroked the man on the head. Ethan, I'm serious. You and I will have a child. You see, all somehow quickly so, but it's true. The man's eyes lit up. Really? God, baby, yes, this is the best news of my life. I couldn't even dream of this. Ethan picked Linda up in his arms and started kissing her cheeks, forehead, and eyes everywhere. Linda laughed and tried to pull away. What kind of fun is going on here? Came Mia's voice. Ethan and Linda froze and looked at each other. Well, you tell me. Winked the man. Linda nodded. Ethan gently lowered her to the floor. Linda walked over to Mia and looked into her eyes. Baby, just don't make a scene, the mother said seriously. I know that in families there is competition between children, and the older ones are often jealous of the younger ones. Well, it shouldn't be like that in ours. Mom, are you all right? Mia touched her mother's forehead to check for a fever. What older kids, what younger kids? I'm kind of on my own. Aunt Isabella's having my half-brother soon, though. Is that what you mean? Almost. Mother laughed. Aunt Isabella has a brother and I have a sister. Well, perhaps it's too young to tell the sex, but somehow I think it will be a girl. Mum, Mia's starting to get the message. Are you saying you're having a baby? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. No way. Mia shook her head. And you are good, Ethan. What do you mean? You're going to put 2 babies on me at once? What traitors? Mia laughed loudly. Linda laughed, and then Ethan laughed, too. The ringtone of her smartphone, ringing out close to lunchtime on a very ordinary working Thursday, once again divided Cassandra's life into the happy period before and the almost hopeless one after. The word mum popped up on the screen, and although calls in the middle of the day weren't too common, the woman had no misgivings about it. Maybe mum missed her or wanted advice on clothing choices. Cassandra put a pencil dot in the margins of the sheet with a variant of the customer's contract and hurried to take the call, so as not to worry her family with a long wait. As soon as the woman heard her mother's voice, which sounded unusually muffled, it seemed to her that her heart plunged downwards. It was obvious that this was not a happy event, and the assumption was unfortunately confirmed. Cassandrachka, hello you, don't worry too much, please. I happen to be in the hospital right now. Cassandra, you're freaking out. Mum, what happened? What hospital are you in? What did the doctors say to bring in? What's the room number? A voice from the phone interrupted the flow of questions. Cassandra, I'm begging you, don't worry. It's just like in the cinema. I slipped, fell, almost passed out, but I'm fine. My neighbor Maggie was passing by and she cheered me up and supported me while we waited for the ambulance. The doctor said I'll be fine, but I'll have to stay in hospital for a while. Mum, why didn't you tell me before? I would have rushed over and helped. I didn't want to bother you in the middle of the day, but my office hours are 4 to 7 p.m. in the evening, and if you're going from the office to my house and then to the pharmacy, I was afraid you might not make it. In general, please write down what you need to bring here. The main policy and phone charger are needed, water not carbonated yet, because for some reason I'm very thirsty. The invisible mum sighed, and the woman imagined how the face of her dear person was distorted from the painful shock and hurried to finish the conversation, specifying the number of the hospital and the room. Cassandra reread the list of things her mother had dictated to her, added chicken broth, wet wipes, and went to ask her supervisor to leave. Mr. Jasper, please allow me to leave early today, for personal reasons. Mum's been admitted to hospital. The boss, a friend of Cassandra's husband's from his student days, expressed polite words of sympathy, and when he found out in which hospital Mum was lying, he encouraged his subordinate and inquired. Well, the doctors in our regional almshouse are good. Maybe the atmosphere is not too luxurious, but the equipment and staff at the top. I've been in this hospital several times and I was discharged as good as new. So you're going to be fine. Don't get too excited. By the way, are you driving the car today or is Kevin driving it? Maybe Nicholas can give you a lift in his car. Cassandra was touched by her boss's concern and decided that she was in no position to refuse. Thank you, Mr. Jasper. That would be very helpful. I won't keep the driver long. I just need to get to Mum's house. I won't keep Nicholas any longer. I'll collect the necessary things and then I'll call a taxi. Thank you. The supervisor wished Cassandra success and promised. Come out in 15 minutes to the main entrance. I'll tell Nicholas to wait for you at your mother's house and drop you off at your and Kevin's family nest. He's coming back for me anyway, and your house is on the way. Thanking her sensitive boss again, Cassandra went to switch off the computer and tidy up her workplace. She had taken the contract with her so as not to let the whole team down and to complete the necessary work by the next morning. The woman was not very good at recognizing the meaning of the stories the driver was trying to entertain her with, but she was grateful that the flow of his speeches made her at least react in some way and prevented her from slipping into anxious thoughts. Following the list, ticking off each recorded item, Cassandra packed up her mother's flat, watered her favorite flowers. She shut off the gas and water just in case, checked to see if there was anything perishable in the fridge, collected the rubbish to throw away, and only then did she go downstairs and set off with the talkative Nicholas next. Not far from Cassandra and Kevin's house, there was a supermarket with a pharmacy inside, and the woman decided to stop there on the way. Asking Nicholas to stop by the container yard, she threw out the rubbish she had collected and rushed off to get some groceries. Moving almost on autopilot, Cassandra bought everything she needed and was soon preparing dinner for her husband and broth for her mother at the same time. While the food was boiling and baking, Cassandra called Kevin and explained the situation. "Kevin, Mum is in hospital. I'm going to go and see her. How long I'll be there, I'm not sure yet. Dinner will be on the cooker." The man confessed. "I'm aware Jasper told me you need support. You wait for me. I'll try to get there early and we'll go to the hospital together. I'll be there for anything else you might need, but I'll be there for you."
Kevin didn't let his wife down and, grabbing her and the 2 bags she had packed, drove her to the hospital. Cassandra managed to persuade the nurse taking the bags to let her see her mum and the attending doctor, who was thankfully on site. Kevin remained waiting for his wife in the lobby, but gave kind words and wishes for a speedy recovery.
Bridget tried to smile when she saw Cassandra enter the room, but she was visibly uncomfortable and frightened. The woman said a soft but distinctive hello to everyone in the room and made her way to her mother's bed. A weight was suspended from the unfortunate woman's right leg, and her lips, bitten almost to the point of blood, were a clear indication that the ice victim was in a lot of pain. Cassandra listened to her mum's story of her predicament and, trying not to cry, began to put everything she had brought into the bedside table. The phone was immediately put on charge. Cassandra gave her mother some broth, made her eat a few spoonfuls of raw, grated carrots. The internet says that such a salad in the first days after the injury the best vitamin remedy. Then sour morsels you drink, also useful. "Oh, daughter, don't worry. You should probably run. Kevin will be home. He'll probably be surprised you're not here." Cassandra explained that her husband had rushed home when he heard what had happened, so she wouldn't have to take a taxi. That he hadn't been missed, but he'd said hello, as if just waiting for that line. The woman in the next bed became active. "The orderlies and nurses here are rude. She intervened in the conversation. You can't call them day or night. They drink tea, spin around in front of doctors, give chocolates, even give money without any use. They're still doing their jobs with their sleeves down." Cassandra kept silent, and having found out from her mother the name and patronymic of her attending doctor, went in search of him. The restless neighbor made a good point. In the residence room, if not, then in the dressing room. Look, there, probably, was someone courtesy. Thanking the grumpy woman dryly, Cassandra went out into the corridor. The nurses in the trauma room, accustomed to all sorts of relatives, tears and hysterics, looked at the visitor, asking how to find a doctor with a mixture of irritation and fatigue. But one of them, who held herself like a superior, answered thoroughly.
"Mr. Oliver is in the superintendent's office at the moment. At that end of the corridor is the penultimate door. Wait there, or there is a bench near the resident's room."
Cassandra waited for the doctor, and he recognized her as Bridget's daughter and invited her into the office. Showing a picture on the computer screen, Mr. Oliver explained, "If I may say so, your mum's fracture was a success. Generally, there are 2 treatment options." The man began to explain the nuances of each option, then asked, "Which option did you decide on?" Cassandra looked the doctor in the eyes but did not answer, but asked a counter question. "Tell me, Mr. Oliver, for example, if a patient with a fracture like my mother's was someone close to you, what would you recommend?" Smiling, the doctor replied briefly, "Osteosynthesis. A very similar case. My aunt, our head, performed a similar operation. It's been a year since she is active again, even in the countryside, so I cannot keep up with her." The woman clarified all the details of the upcoming operation, wrote down what else she needed to bring for the post-operative period, and having said goodbye to the doctor, left the office. Cassandra had to announce to her mother that the operation was scheduled for the next day, and having collected herself, the woman presented it as lightly as possible, trying not to upset her mother. "Tomorrow I will come and meet you after the operation. Everything will be fine, don't worry." "Cassandrachka, what about your work? The boss will probably scold you." "Don't worry about that. I'll do my job and I won't let you or the chief down." With the operation, the long road to Bridget being able to walk again had only just begun. For a fortnight, Cassandra visited her mum almost daily to feed and nurse her. The woman tried to object and repeatedly stated, "Cassandra, you take care of yourself, don't come to see me so often. The food here is not bad, and I do not have an appetite. Where it will come from, if my energy is not spent on anything." But Bridget could not persuade her daughter. When the day of her discharge arrived, Cassandra went to the doctor for recommendations. Mr. Oliver was cautious and warned, "Your mum is a very energetic lady. Well, I've made my point to her, and I'll make my point to you. I wouldn't be overly optimistic if I were you, but there's no need to despair. Although it is impossible to fully rely on the injured limb. Crutches are Bridget's best friends for the next month, and then you should also take care. Of course, it is necessary to move, but carefully. Prophylactic treatment is indicated to prevent pressure sores. I'll be expecting a follow-up X-ray in 6 weeks. We'll see how far along the bone is in the healing process. That's pretty much it." Cassandra checked. "Maybe some vitamins for Mum to take?" Mr. Oliver shrugged. "Well, in principle you could. You'll have to get a rehabilitation plan from your local clinic." Cassandra called a taxi specializing in transporting people with limited mobility, and after a heroic journey through the streets, Bridget was finally in her flat. Cassandra faced a new problem. Her mum's physical condition still left much to be desired. Even a simple trip to the bathroom or kitchen could result in a new injury. For the first time, Cassandra came to Bridget twice a day, and by the New Year holidays she was almost exhausted. The traffic jams were taking up so much time that there were only a few hours left for sleep. Cassandra turned to her husband. "Kevin, let's get Mum to come stay with us for a while. At least I won't have to go back and forth between flats." The man gloomed and after a languid pause replied, "Cassandra, I'm wonderful to your mum. Bridget is a wonderful woman, but I'm sorry, but I'm going to be blunt. There's nowhere to put her here. I mean, it's a studio flat. It's a big room, but there's only one room. When I persuaded you to take out a mortgage, I didn't get any sympathy. Both you and your mum were against it. Kevin, you could put up a screen. It'll be like 2 rooms. Look, but Bridget would be uncomfortable in the first place. I play computer games. I listen to loud music all night. Besides, you should ask her if she'd be willing to move. I'm 100% sure she'll say no. Your mum is very tactful and wise and understands that the further away she lives, the better her relationship with her son-in-law will be." Kevin turned out to be right. Bridget, having barely heard the idea of her son-in-law and daughter moving into the flat, only snorted indignantly. "There can't even be a conversation. The walls help at home. I will not go to you, especially there, and sit quietly. It will be uncomfortable." Cassandra obeyed her mother's will. She didn't want to argue with her husband. She continued to waste time standing in traffic, and the lawyer's position at Mr. Jasper's firm had to be vacated. With her boss's permission, Cassandra had transferred to a half-time position and was glad that her boss had been able to meet her needs. She prepared contracts, visited and trained her successor, and diligently performed all the duties that did not require constant presence in the office. Rehab, however, took a lot more money than the woman had realized. Sometimes she shared with her husband her indignation at the fact that pharmacies changed prices at will and tried to sell the most expensive version of a drug. That's when Kevin would start grumbling. "Look, Cassandra, your mum must have some free medication." The woman tried not to answer. After all, the family budget was not suffering, and she had not asked her husband for money for almost 6 months since the fateful news of her mother's troubles. Cassandra had generally tried to deal with the situation on her own, without interfering with Kevin. As the weather changed, Cassandra's schedule, by tradition, remained almost unchanged. In the morning she made her husband's breakfast and, if she had time, made preparations for lunch and dinner. Then, after putting some of the breakfast in containers, she rushed to her mother's house, stopping at the shops and pharmacies on the way. Nursing, keeping her spirits up and helping her move around the flat took up a lot of her time. Cassandra would then run into the office as well and rush home for the evening. In case of any emergencies, her neighbor, the same Maggie who had helped her wait for the ambulance, had the key to her mother's flat. She would sometimes drop by to watch TV and gossip together. So Bridget wasn't abandoned, but Cassandra was desperate to get her mother back on her feet. And not just because she had to spend a lot of time traveling back and forth between the distant parts of the city every day, without holidays and weekends. Mom was simply the closest person to her. She had, in fact, given Cassandra the gift of life twice. The first time on her birthday 38 years ago, but more importantly later, when a terrible tragedy struck Cassandra in a terrible avalanche. It was her mother who was there for her in those black days, helping her to move around when her legs almost collapsed on nervous grounds, forcing her to drink and eat, then by persuasion, then through force. Abandoning her monetary and not dusty job, her mother sold the flat in their hometown and, almost like a huge and clumsy cube, moved it 2,000 kilometers away from the place where everything Cassandra reminded her of her inhuman grief. It was Bridget who had forced her into a job where it was almost impossible to be alone with her sad thoughts, where she had to look stylish and trim. Cassandra didn't consider her help to her mum to be a sacrifice and, despite her tiredness, tried to take care of her husband, especially since the 10th wedding anniversary was approaching, and the woman wanted to arrange a touching congratulation and a pleasant surprise for patient Kevin. She made a preliminary version of the menu, found a confectionery where orders were made according to individual designs, and agreed to prepare an unusual shaped cake for her husband, who loves sweets. The holiday was approaching, but shortly before it arrived, Kevin, during morning breakfast, warned, "Sorry, Cassandra, but I need a car for a few days. I have to go to the branch in the neighboring region, because it seems that the branch manager is messing up her reports, and the profits are down many times over. Although in other divisions everything is even, and in some places even growth is observed. Of course, I'll try to make a quick trip, but planes are unlikely to fly in those parts. I don't feel like traveling by train. Can you manage without a car?" Cassandra herself was counting on the faithful family horse, but she didn't argue. After all, her husband really needed the car more. She smiled. "I'll manage, of course." Kevin thanked her politely for breakfast and promised, "It's okay, we'll buy you an iron horse too. Once the situation at work normalizes a bit, you'll be able to choose a model." Running out of the house, the man kissed his wife on the cheek, winked and said, "Don't worry, I remember about our wedding anniversary. I'll try to be there by Friday evening." Taking advantage of her husband's absence, Cassandra moved in with her mother for a while so she wouldn't waste time traveling. During these few days, she managed to do a general cleaning, and the flat became somehow especially fresh in spring. Only on the eve of the holiday, Cassandra had to return home to bring her urgently needed diploma to the office. It was a good thing, though, because she also had to clean up the house and make some of Kevin's favorite salads. In the morning, the woman took the festive treats that had been put aside in separate containers and rushed to her mother's house. She habitually gave her a massage, helped her walk around her room, and even after waiting for the lift repairs to be completed, finally took her mother outside to enjoy the nice weather and enjoy the feeling of life returning to the way it was before the injury. After a short walk, Bridget and Cassandra had lunch, and the daughter began to apologize. "Mom, I'm sorry, please forgive me. I'm going to leave early today. I want to surprise Kevin. Turn the telly off when you get bored. Your phone is charged. Call me if you need anything, okay? Run, Cassandra. Happy holidays to you and Kevin. It's been 10 years together." Kissing her mom, Cassandra ran down the route she had planned. Spring, which had long ago come into its own and was rapidly approaching summer, gave soft warmth, and the sweet and tart scent of blossoming lilacs set her in the most romantic mood. Contrary to popular belief that getting married in May was a sign of trouble, she didn't have to worry about it in her second marriage. On the contrary, Kevin was a safe haven for a woman. There were no violent passions between them, but there was mutual sympathy and respect. Cassandra appreciated her husband for the fact that he did not pry into her soul, did not harass her with jealousy and suspicion, did not demand to give birth to an heir or heiress. It was only when he declared his intentions to be serious that Cassandra warned him directly and honestly that children were not part of her plans. The man was not frightened by this statement. A few years after the wedding, Kevin asked if she had changed her mind about the child, but having heard a categorical no, did not begin to find out the reasons and did not raise this topic again. The man was a good partner, and of course she loved him in her own way, with all the strength that a wounded heart was capable of. Following the list she'd made the day before, Cassandra bought drinks, got the calamari Kevin adored. And so she bought all sorts of little things: crusty baguette, fresh green salad, fruit. The 2 large shopping bags that Cassandra had thoughtfully brought with her gradually filled up. Hanging them on both shoulders, she ran into the pastry shop where she had ordered the cake. Now it was safe to go home. Cassandra looked hopefully at the family parking space and sighed with relief there was no car, so she would have time to set the table, hang the balloons and dress up before her husband returned. She praised herself mentally for the handy bags, thanks to which one hand was free. Hurriedly opening the doors, the woman finally found herself in the family nest. Placing the box of cake on the banquet, Cassandra suddenly froze with surprise. In the familiar hum of a residential apartment building, there was a foreign sound coming from the kitchen. Strangely, there were no foreign shoes on the mat, no strangers' belongings visible, but the clatter of dishes came to her quite clearly. It was as if someone was moving a massive plate or a bulky mug. Kevin and Cassandra didn't have any pets. They had all wanted to get a cute dog, but unhappiness with Mum had tweaked that plan. It probably would have been much smarter to go out to the playground, close the door, and call her husband, but from exhaustion, Cassandra didn't act as safety dictated. Automatically pulling her trainers off her feet, and right with her bags on her shoulders, the woman walked into the kitchen and nearly collapsed in surprise. Tucking one leg under herself on a chair sat a boy of about 6 years old from the looks of it. The unknown little guest was completely engrossed in his meal. On the table in front of him was Kevin's huge mug, a bottle of water, and a large deep plate into which Cassandra had assembled the puffed salad from the evening before, so that it had time to soak in. The spoon sticking out from the edge was a clear indication that the dish had already been unceremoniously sampled. The child was biting into a stick of raw smoked sausage with gusto, and the woman's heart ached as the memories came flooding back. It was too painful to act rationally. For a few seconds, Cassandra even thought she was hallucinating due to overexertion or some other reason. However, the vision was too realistic in both sound and image, and even sausage-flavored. The engrossed boy broke away from his tasty pastime only after Cassandra, wheezing slightly from nervousness, caught his attention with a question. "Hello. Who are you and what are you doing here?" The boy jumped up from his chair and, without letting go of the sausage from his hand, reported, "My name is Thomas Brown. Uncle Kevin brought me here, told me to wait here for him, said I could eat whatever I wanted. So I'm eating. It's good sausage, but it's very salty." Cassandra had no idea that the man the boy called Uncle Kevin was not her husband Kevin. Such an incredible coincidence as in the film, when the hero didn't realize he had opened someone else's flat with his own keys and was completely unconcerned by anything in the typical setting of a standard flat, simply couldn't have happened. Alexandra could safely vouch that it was not easy to find even a closely similar design as in her and her husband's accommodation. Of course, the situation, with the appearance of a boy in the kitchen, must have a logical explanation, the woman thought. She herself, having married Kevin, had become Taylor, and the surname Brown meant absolutely nothing to her. Her husband was an only child with his parents, but he had cousins and cousins, as far as Cassandra knew. Except they hadn't been invited to the modest wedding, and she didn't know them not only by sight but by their last names. So it was quite possible that the Thomas Brown sitting in front of her was the child of one of her husband's cousins. But why did he, without even warning, suddenly brought this boy to their flat? Shaken out of her psychological equilibrium, Cassandra couldn't concentrate. Her thoughts were jumbled, and she didn't even have time to come up with any plausible theories before Kevin called. Coming out of her daze, Cassandra finally took the bags off her shoulders and took the call. The man began to speak quickly, literally not letting his wife get a word in edgewise. "Beloved, you and I have just missed each other by a little bit. I've just left Bridget's flat, and I'll be there in 20 minutes to explain everything to you. In the meantime, set the table, will you?" The bewildered woman cheered up a little and replied briefly, "Okay." She could feel Thomas's gaze on her very clearly, but she could not find the strength to look him in the eye. The woman brought her new slippers from the corridor, just recently bought in anticipation of the approaching summer season, and suggested, "Thomas, it's hot at home in sneakers. Keep the flip-flops. Put on more comfortable and convenient will be." The child silently obeyed. To diffuse the situation and to occupy the boy she had dropped off, but to avoid having to talk to him a lot, Cassandra asked, "Thomas, do you know how to inflate balloons?" The boy nodded. The woman quickly went to the room, brought the child a whole package, opened it. Then, on some impulse, rinsed the tips through which Thomas was to inflate the balloons and handed it to him, asking, "You inflate not too much. When you get tired, rest. And I'll help you tie them. Agreed?" The child nodded dutifully and, without any embarrassment, asked, "And your name, Cassandra, is it?" Cassandra shrugged her shoulders. "Yes. That's a beautiful name. Thank you." There was silence in the kitchen. The boy, thinking about something, busied himself with the balloons. Cassandra, watching her guest with a sidelong glance, began to unpack her bags, prepare what she had planned, and gradually set the table. She put the cake in the fridge, and, distracted by the thought of tying the balloons Thomas had inflated, felt a pinch of pain rather than irritation. She wasn't angry with her husband, but there were all sorts of thoughts running through her mind. The woman felt the curious gaze of the little guest, but did not dare to look him in the eye. So they looked at each other but hardly spoke to each other. Cassandra didn't notice when Kevin entered the kitchen with a huge bouquet of roses in his hands and a large bag. The man put the bag on the floor and handed the flowers to his wife. "Cassandra, congratulations to you and myself on our holiday. I see you've met Thomas and made friends? How marvelous. Well then, let's celebrate." The boy, visibly cheerful after Kevin's appearance, said modestly, "Congratulations." And as everyone sat down at the table after the inevitable fuss, he loudly boasted, "Uncle Kevin, I inflated the balloons myself and Cassandra helped me tie them. Did we give you a good surprise?" The grown man mumbled something in response to the little guest's chatter, praising Thomas and his wife, who hadn't even touched her food. There was a sense of tension in the flat, and Kevin set about remedying the situation. He turned on the music softly and began to praise his wife's cooking enthusiastically. Then he made a toast to Cassandra's beauty and charm. He took a box out of his pocket, handed it to her, and said, "Congratulations, I hope you like it." The woman, confused in her assumptions and thoughts about why her husband had brought a child into the flat, only now remembered her gift. Leaving the not-too-cheerful company for a while, Cassandra clutched the never-opened box in the palm of her hand, pulled out the hidden present. Returning to the table, she handed the bundle to her husband and confined herself to a meager phrase, "Happy tin wedding anniversary." Kevin hastily tore the wrapping paper and began to loudly admire the pewter cup and began to show the gift to Thomas. The woman felt uncomfortable and sank back into her thoughts. Not at all how she had imagined celebrating her wedding anniversary. She had wanted to prepare a surprise, but her husband had managed not just to surprise her, but to completely throw her off balance in the most natural way. Cassandra coughed violently, choking on her mineral water when she heard the question. "Cassandra, Thomas is going to stay with us for a couple of weeks, okay?" Cassandra was silent, not knowing what to say. Kevin tried to justify himself. "I went to Bridget's to pick you up on my way home and I wanted to explain everything to you. But I didn't have time, so it was a surprise. I'm sorry I didn't think to warn you, but I was sure I'd catch you at Mum's, and on the way I'd let you know we had a visitor." Kevin's monologue ended in a long silence. Cassandra moved the food on her plate with her fork without raising her eyes to her husband. He, confused, didn't know what else to say for himself. With childlike directness, Thomas broke into the silence by asking in a ringing voice, "Aunt Cassandra, thank you, I've already eaten. but can I have some cake now?" The boy showed the empty plate, and with a stony face, Cassandra got up from her chair and walked to the fridge. She wanted to scream, to stomp her feet, to cry, and to hit the dishes soiled like her faith in her husband's honesty, but she knew it wouldn't make it any easier. The most likely explanation for Kevin bringing Thomas to the flat seemed to her to be his cheating husband. With her whole being, Cassandra now hated the man she had loved for 10 years as much as she knew how. Kevin, who knew his wife well, guessed from her jerky movements that she would say everything she had on her mind, and decided to take the little guest away from the table to a sitting area where he could distract himself from the upcoming serious conversation between the adults. "Thomas, come on. I'll switch on the games console. I have mostly complicated games, but we can find something to your taste on the internet. Or I'll switch on cartoons if you want." "Will you be able to eat cake there?" the boy asked interestedly. Of course, everything is possible there. The boy's eyes sparkled, and he trustingly followed the owner of the flat to a cozy, soft corner. Cassandra, having heard her husband and guest talking, cut off a large piece of cake, carefully placed it on a plate, switched on the electric kettle, and carefully watched it boil. The click of the switch being switched off brought her out of her reverie. Making the tea, the woman placed a cup of the tasty drink, sugar and spoon, and a plate of cake on a tray, and then took it to the table near the play area of the flat. Kevin was showing Thomas a collection of computer games, but the boy, who was clearly well-mannered, broke away from the fascinating activity and thanked her. "Thank you very much." The woman nodded and, turning abruptly, walked away. When Kevin walked into the kitchen, he found a strange sight. Cassandra sitting on the floor, holding a dirty-looking pair of children's sneakers, tears rolling down her cheeks. The man tried to make a joke. "Cassandra, come on." A child with dirty shoes walked into the kitchen. "We'll switch on the Hoover robot and let it work. It's not a big deal. Is it worth getting upset over a little dust? Especially since it was a holiday." Cassandra looked at her husband in a way that made him uncomfortable and said quietly, "Kevin, I think I've told you repeatedly that I don't want to be in the same space with the children for too long. It's beyond me. I guess your action, or as you put it, your surprise, had good reasons, and I can understand that. But I'm sorry, Bet. I don't have the slightest desire to deal with the proceedings today. I'm going to go to my mum's and stay with her for a while." Kevin could not understand the reason for his wife's categorical decision, but he could see that Cassandra was on the verge of a nervous breakdown, so he proposed. "Cassandra, I'm really guilty for not warning you, but I can explain. I think that when you hear me out, you'll realize that I just couldn't have done it any other way. I'll wait until you're ready to talk." The woman suddenly gently lowered the children's sneakers to the floor, wiped the tears from her cheeks with the back of her hand, and walked to the door as if she hadn't heard her husband. Kevin took his wife's hand and asked, "Cassandra, wait a minute. I'll call a taxi to Bridget's house, so I don't have to worry about you." Cassandra nodded and was soon in the car, fumbling with the strap of her purse. The road was clear, and the journey to her mother's house took much less time than it did during peak hours. Hardly had the woman opened the door when she heard it. "Maggie, come in, dear. I'm not feeling very well." Cassandra closed the door behind her and took off her shoes and walked into her mum's bedroom. Bridget became alarmed when she saw her daughter. "Cassandrachka, why are you back? Didn't Kevin come home? I reckon your wedding anniversary should be in full swing and you're here for some reason. Daughter, what's wrong?" Cassandra walked over to her mother's bed, sat down on the floor, and leaned her head on Bridget's palm and recounted everything that had happened since she had come home and seen Thomas there. When she had finished, Cassandra made a suggestion. "Mum, I'm pretty sure Thomas is Kevin's illegitimate son. The boy looks to be about 6 years old, which means my husband has been giving me the horns and has the nerve to show me evidence of his infidelity on our wedding anniversary." Bridget tried to reassure her daughter. "I'm sure Kevin can explain everything. I feel he loves you. Trust my experience. He would hardly risk his relationship with you and cheat." However, Cassandra cried without stopping. The woman stroked her so grown-up but defenseless sobbing girl, but did not utter any more words because they were all powerless. Finally, when the flow of tears had dried up, Cassandra silently got up from the floor and went to wash her face swollen with tears. The woman felt completely devastated. Returning to her mother's room, Cassandra confessed, "I'm very tired for today, and do you mind if I lie down?" Bridget did not object and suggested, for example, that we talk some more and have dinner. She realized that her unfortunate daughter needed to rest. "Of course, Cassandrachka, but why don't you and I have a sedative, at least some valerian? It would do you and me good." Cassandra complied with her mother's request and went to bed. The nervous tension was so intense that the woman passed out and woke up when it was 10 o'clock in the morning. Jumping up on the couch, Cassandra rushed to the kitchen, where she found her mother stirring the batter for pancakes. "Good morning, daughter. You're just in time for breakfast." The women cooked the pancakes in 4 hands and, as if in agreement, never said a word about yesterday's situation. As Cassandra washed the dishes, Bridget asked, "Daughter, please go to the theater with Maggie. She has 2 tickets to a very good play, great seats. Her niece gave them to her for her birthday. They were supposed to go together, but as luck would have it, her niece got sick. The rest of the family can't keep Maggie company. Someone's got a holiday cottage, someone's traveling on a business trip. All in all, it's a shame to lose the ticket." Cassandra shook her head. "Mum, I don't want to go anywhere I'm not in the mood." But if Bridget had something on her mind, she knew how to insist. "That's why you should go, because you're not in the mood. Art is great at shifting thoughts in your head and changing your emotions. Please, daughter, not for the sake of the missing ticket, but for me." Reluctantly, Cassandra had to comply with her mum's wish. However, she refused the offer to run to the hairdresser's beforehand and get a new haircut. After waiting for Maggie to take Cassandra away, Bridget called her son-in-law and said in an almost commanding tone, "Kevin, Cassandra will be gone for about 3 hours. Come over. We need to talk." The man did not resist, but warned, "Bridget, I'll definitely come. But I don't have anyone to leave Thomas with. I can probably find a nanny, but I wouldn't trust the boy to someone I don't know, so I can only come with him. Do you mind?" The woman sighed. "I don't mind." "Good. Then I'll be at your place with Thomas in half an hour." 30 minutes later, Bridget carefully reached the door, leaning on a steady walker, and let Kevin and Thomas into the flat. The man introduced the child, and the boy said hello politely. The landlady tried not to show her incredible excitement and invited Thomas into the kitchen. "Come in, I have a TV and cakes waiting for you. Do you want cocoa or tea?" The child announced that coffee was the most delicious for him, but that children should not drink this drink often, and he would have tea, because he was too old for cocoa. Bridget almost laughed out of surprise, but she got her emotions under control in time and, turning to Kevin, asked, "Can I give Thomas a chicory drink then? It's almost like coffee." The boy got excited. "I want to try this chicory, Uncle Kevin, can I?" Kevin agreed, and when the hostess had cleverly prepared the treat for Thomas, the man handed the boy his smartphone and explained, "I need to have a chat with Bridget. You please stay here. Eat the treats, play on your phone, maybe even watch some clips on the internet for a bit, okay?" "Sure, Uncle Kevin, I'm perfectly capable of unsupervised. Don't worry." Watching this picture, Bridget could hardly contain herself from crying and hiding her emotions. She slowly began to walk towards the room, which was called the hall in the old-fashioned way. She was followed by Kevin, who was eager to find out what Bridget wanted to talk to him about. The woman sat down in the armchair, and the man sat on the sofa across from it, so that the conversation could be carried on comfortably. The hostess looked at her son-in-law attentively, but he did not bear it for long and asked without preamble, "Bridget, can you explain to me why Cassandra reacted so inappropriately to Thomas's appearance in our flat? I admit it was my fault for not warning her, but we're adults. Instead of having a calm conversation, she basically just ran to you. Is that normal?" The woman did not interrupt her son-in-law's indignant speech, but she did not hurry to answer his question, but asked a counter-question. "Before I start a difficult conversation to try to help my daughter keep her family together, I need to be sure it makes sense. Tell me honestly, is Thomas your illegitimate son?" The man's outrage was unparalleled. No, of course I'd never think of cheating on Cassandra. I love her very much, I respect her, but her attitude towards children is beginning to frighten me. Thomas ended up in our flat because of a desperate situation, but Cassandra didn't even try to get along with him. Although, as you may have noticed, he is a well-mannered, bright, and charming boy. Kevin's answer calmed the worried woman, and taking a deep breath as if preparing to parachute in, she decided to tell her son-in-law the truth. Well, all things secret, as they say, come to light. As a husband, you have the right to know why my daughter avoids contact with my children. I think I have the right to tell you her story, which at first seemed like a happy fairy tale, and then turned into a terrible nightmare that destroyed the usual life. Cassandra grew up to be a marvelous and clever girl, a real joy to me and my husband. We had no trouble getting her into one of the best grammar schools in our city. The wealth of our family and the positions held by me and my husband allowed Cassandra to be her own among the same, as they say, the golden youth. However, the gymnasium had a very strong teaching staff and grades were not for sale, as you might think. Children were skillfully interested in learning, and our Cassandrachka was one of the best students in the class. She was even sort of made a mentor for her desk mate Michael. The boy was from a very good family, quite influential in our town. Just kidding, his dad is a regional prosecutor. His mum is in the same department, not on the last position. In general, they were better off than our family, but they did not hinder the development of friendship between their son and Cassandra. They sincerely welcomed her, and they did not talk to me and my husband through the lip, but quite kindly. When Cassandra was in year 10, her father died suddenly. A blood clot had broken off, as the autopsy showed. It was Michael's family that supported me and Cassandra after this loss. I still thank them for that, because I was in such a state that I almost went to my husband. So of course I didn't mind at all when Cassandra decided to marry Michael. So what if they were just over 18 at the time? Obviously you can't stand in the way of real feelings. Michael's parents didn't mind either, and were even happy that my daughter was part of their family. A year after the wedding, Cassandra and Michael had twins and 2 boys, Stephen and Marcus. Healthy, happy, strong. They grew up and made us all happy. Cassandra couldn't get enough of her babies. You know, Kevin, she used to tell me that she was walking, rolling the pram in front of her, and her heart would jump out of her chest from happiness. Of course, I helped whenever I could. My husband's mum repeatedly suggested that Cassandra hire a reliable nanny, but my daughter refused every time, and she mostly managed on her own. God knows what it cost her, but she didn't give up her university studies, and even managed to manage without a sabbatical. And her husband's father got her a prestigious and well-paid job, a position where the working day was strictly rationed, and there was a social package and other niceties. He had the opportunity, of course. And he was not ashamed to patronize his daughter-in-law. Cassandrachka was a clever girl. Stephen and Marcus were 6 years old when my daughter became pregnant again. Michael welcomed the news with joy, and there was nothing to be sad about. The family had a wonderful relationship. As far as I knew, there had never been a fight between them. It was as if the 2 halves were lucky enough to be united as one. I know a lot of people were jealous, and some ladies tried to have an affair with Michael, but he didn't want anyone but my Cassandrachka. Everything was so perfect that I didn't even think that everything would fall apart overnight because of a terrible tragedy. Cassandrachka had to go to the doctor, and Michael volunteered to pick up his sons from kindergarten. Ridiculously, his car broke down that day, so he decided not to call a taxi, but to take the children home through the park. The weather was fine, and although the rides were not yet open, there was a pizzeria at the exit of the park that the boys wanted to go to. Michael met a mate on the way, and while he was talking to him, the kids got excited and ran out onto the lake, but the March ice was treacherously thin. My grandchildren, as witnesses told me later, did not even have time to shout. They went under the water in a flash. Michael and his mate rushed to the pond, but there was no way to catch the boys, managed only to arrive at the scene of the tragedy divers. Michael later tried to justify himself as wound up, constantly repeating that he was distracted only for a few seconds, but what good? Our boys had drowned, and it could not be undone. My son-in-law was the first to tell me this bitter news, because he was afraid for Cassandra, and for good reason. I went to the private clinic where I knew Cassandrachka was at that time. My heart told me that it was better to have doctors close by when the worst of grief came upon my daughter. Seeing me in the corridor, Cassandra must have realized everything from my face. She had been hysterical since the news of what had happened. Even a large dose of medication could not calm Cassandra down. She never made it home that night, ending up in hospital with a nervous breakdown. Because of her worries about her dead sons, my daughter was unable to save the baby that was developing under her heart. He wasn't even considered a baby by the doctors. She had already lost him. At the funeral of Stephen and Marcus, Cassandra stood like a stone statue, no tears, no emotion, pale as death. Especially terrible was the emptiness in her eyes. Michael was no less worried. Having turned gray in his 25 years, he tried to take Cassandra's hand for support, but she shied away from him like a leper. She never again crossed the threshold of the flat where she lived with her husband and sons. How many times Michael had tried to talk to her could not be counted, but it had never worked. Cassandra just cut her husband out of her life. Michael's mother came to us. Having realized that my daughter did not want to see or hear from her husband, she was on her knees, begging me to forgive her son, saying that he was not like himself. She shared her sad thoughts that he was on the verge of leaving this world, but Cassandra did not react. She had never forgiven her husband for the loss of her sons. Michael could not forgive himself either. Indeed, he had turned from a blossoming man into a pale semblance of his former self. Cassandra predictably quit her job, seemingly of her own volition, but in fact everyone realized that she simply could not be under public scrutiny. In addition, there was an unusual and unexpected problem. Her daughter was approaching hysterics. It was worth it to go outside and see the child. She changed her route, but it was impossible to absolutely eliminate the possibility of meeting children. One day, Cassandra and I were riding in the lift, and a neighbor with a baby came in with us. Everything seemed to be normal, but I rejoiced too early. After the traveling companion got out of the lift, I looked at my daughter and saw that her chin was bleeding. She had bitten her lip so hard trying to hold back a tantrum. After this incident, my daughter stayed at home all day and night for almost a month. I even called a special doctor, the best of the best, at home. There were changes, but not quick and not at all positive. After a period of apathy, my daughter became aggressive. It was as if she had an obsession, and the medication prescribed by the doctor could not cope with it for long. Cassandra would take the pills for a few hours, fall into a state of indifference to everything, then begin to think about something painfully, walking from side to side in the room. One day I saw that she was looking for poison options online, and I was seriously frightened. I realized that my daughter had decided to deal with the unwitting perpetrator of her children's deaths. I tried to stay close to my daughter at all times to make sure she didn't do anything irreparable. Once, Cassandrachka managed to leave the house in the morning while I was asleep. People told me later that she caught Michael at his work and attacked him with her fists. She was screaming, "Why do you live and our sons don't?" I don't know, maybe my acquaintances exaggerated, but supposedly 4 strong men could barely pull her away from the confused Michael. He didn't even resist. When I came to pick her up, my daughter was sitting in the back room, where there was the aroma of the hated sedative and some other drugs, and almost did not react to anything. I was told that an ambulance had come and sedated Cassandra. Among my acquaintances and neighbors, of course, there was only talk of my grandchildren's accident and Cassandra going mad with grief. One day, Michael's father called me and urged me to leave town with his daughter. You don't say no to people like him. Besides, I'd been thinking of ways to hide my daughter from sympathetic and prying eyes. I quit my job, sold my flat. Again, thanks to my son-in-law's parents, I managed to do it both quickly and at a price that was quite adequate, given the urgency. Cassandra and Michael were divorced in absentia. Again, thanks to his relatives. My daughter didn't even have to go anywhere. We ended up moving to this town, away from everything that was, and then you know the rest, Kevin. You met her, and my daughter started coming back to life. Don't get me wrong, Cassandra's not bad with kids. She's just still in pain. She refuses to be a mom again for fear of repeating the nightmare she went through. Bridget was silent as she recounted her daughter's terrible story. The woman was exhausted mentally. Kevin noticed how pale her face had become and hurried to the kitchen to fetch her some water. Thomas was playing on his phone, and the man stroked his head, filled a glass, and returned to Bridget in the hall. "I'm sorry to make you remember everything." The woman took a careful drink of her water and spoke bitterly. Kevin, if only it could be forgotten at all. I probably should have told you about Cassandra's past sooner, but I've been hesitant to say it out loud. My daughter, I understand, still can't talk about it either. The man looked at the woman, puzzled, and confessed. To be honest, I had no idea that Cassandra's reluctance to become a mum could hide such a tragedy. I thought she probably didn't want to ruin her figure. I can't imagine how she must have felt when she saw Thomas in our kitchen. What a surprise I managed to surprise her on our anniversary. How am I supposed to apologize to Cassandra and make her understand? I really had nowhere to bring Thomas, and for a number of reasons, the boy needed to stay for a week or two in a safe and comfortable place where his parents' enemies wouldn't think to look. I arrived at the branch and bumped into an old mate I hadn't seen since the demobilization. Winston was more than a friend to me. It was thanks to him that I survived the army, but that's a long story. In the civilian life, we were separated by our hometowns, and as it happens, our contacts were lost. I tried to find him on social networks, but without success. Perhaps I should have been more persistent in my search, then I would have found him. But I was building my career. Anyway, I haven't seen him for 15 years, and now I'm meeting Winston in a city that's foreign to both of us. Of course, he had changed over the years, but I recognized him at once. He almost walked past me without noticing, but I stopped him. It turned out that Winston had come to solve the problems of his sister and her husband. They were involved in a lawsuit with not two adequate people who used to conduct all affairs in a criminal way. Winston was most worried about Thomas, his nephew. He explained to his sister that the child should be hidden just in case, because through him these bandits could easily influence the decision of the issue in their favor, but they could not think of any safe place. And then I come out of nowhere. To Winston, the idea of getting Thomas out of town seemed the ideal. In fact, there were virtually no strings that could put the bandits on the child's trail. It was good that the boy had a strong character, a real man growing up. His parents and Winston told him he had to stay with me for a while, and he took the news in stride. I picked him up like a detective so I wouldn't get caught on the city's security cameras. We agreed to contact Winston in a week, and he should call me when the matter was resolved. Thomas, of course, is a perfect boy. He got used to being in an unfamiliar place. He even went to bed by himself after brushing his teeth. All we have to do is wait for Winston to call. Thomas is very easy for me to talk to, but I have to go to work on Monday and I can hardly take him with me. I don't know what to do now. Kevin was silent, and then Cassandra's voice came out of the blue. It's no big deal. You go to work as usual and I'll stay with Thomas. Just leave me the car so I don't have to take public transport to get to and from Mum. It turned out that, contrary to Bridget's calculations, her daughter had already returned from the theater and seemed to have heard some part of her husband's story. Preempting her mother's question, Cassandra explained. I couldn't watch the play in the theater. I went to the bathroom, washed my face, and realized I couldn't go back and look at the stage without even trying to get into the story. So I typed Maggie an apology and came here. Turns out I got back just in time. I guess I should have heard Thomas's story from the outside, because Kevin, I'm sorry I suspected you of cheating and I wouldn't have believed you if you'd told me all that yesterday. I can see the situation more clearly today. Mum, you don't mind if I visit you with Thomas, do you? The woman, trying not to frighten away the change in her daughter's attitude towards her children, spoke very carefully. Of course you can come. Bridget wanted to say something else, but her eyes were watering, and she decided to change the subject. Cassandrachka, Kevin, aren't you hungry? I could eat something right now. Let's go into the kitchen. All the more reason to see how Thomas is doing, see if he's bored. I've forgotten all about the rules of hospitality. The boy saw Cassandra and said hello, and the woman's voice trembled slightly as she responded to his greeting. Kevin, who had understood the reason for his wife's strange behavior, was now amazed at her resilience. She had been through such an ordeal and had never tried to appeal to his pity or to elicit sympathy with stories of what she had faced. Cassandra gently but insistently dismissed Bridget's attempts to feed everyone gathered in her kitchen that evening. Thank you, Mum, for everything, but we'll probably go home. I'll stop by tomorrow close to lunchtime. Kevin, who realized he had received his wife's forgiveness, was overjoyed and bid Bridget a heartfelt farewell, promising, "We'll all visit you all together tomorrow. If your health permits and the weather is warm, we can go out into the countryside. How would you like that, Bridget? Wonderful, Kevin. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. After saying goodbye to Cassandra's landlady, Kevin and Thomas went to the other side of town. The man sat behind the wheel and watched in the mirror as his wife carefully fastened the boy's seatbelt. It was obvious that for Cassandra it was a completely natural gesture, once perfected to the point of automaticity. She was obviously a caring mother. She loved her children very much, and after her misfortune she was suffering in a way that her worst enemy could not wish for. Carefully parked the car at the entrance. The man carried the sleeping Thomas in his arms to the flat. Cassandra straightened out the rumpled sheet on the couch, carefully removed the boy's shoes, and covered the child with a blanket. Watching his wife, Kevin felt incredible tenderness for her. Suddenly, the woman he loved opened up to him from an unfamiliar side of her personality, and he realized that he had made the absolutely right choice. Later, with the door to the kitchen closed, they drank tea with the remaining cake, and it was as if there had been no wall of misunderstanding between them yesterday. With jokes and kisses, they planned the schedule for Sunday afternoon. The man dared to bring up the unpleasant subject and confessed. "Cassandra, I am a real idiot. I almost ruined everything with my act, and I want to say thank you very much for your understanding." The wife smiled. "Well, I, to be honest, also overreacted, so I propose to forget bygones." The weekend went cheerfully and even better than the spouses had anticipated. They'd managed to get Bridget out for a walk, too, and she'd been much less happy about the sunny May day than she'd been about her daughter's happy eyes. Cassandra was happy to answer Thomas's questions and also kept a constant eye on him to make sure he wasn't in danger. Neither her mother nor her husband dared reprimand her for being overprotective. Thomas didn't seem to care that he was surrounded by the utmost care. By agreement with Cassandra, he called her by her first name without using the word aunt and seemed quite content with his unexpected journey. When they had brought Bridget home after the entertainment, the trio had to wait, for there was no chance of leaving the woman without being fed. No one minded, though. Late that night, as Cassandra was putting Thomas to bed, the boy quietly asked her, "Do you think my parents are doing well? Will I be able to see them soon?" Trying to keep her voice firm and convincing, Cassandra replied, "Of course they are doing well. Very soon they will do all their business, and you will meet them." The boy fell asleep. Cassandra, afraid of waking the child, beckoned her husband into the kitchen and began to ask him about the story Thomas's parents were involved in. "Cassandra, I honestly don't even know all the details. Winston gave me a very brief outline, but I realized that his sister and her husband had been attacked by some really bad guys." The woman began to clarify, asking unexpected questions for her husband. "Are these bandits from the city where you went, or are they newcomers? Did your friend give you any nicknames?" Kevin told everything he knew, but Cassandra didn't have enough information and suddenly asked, "Can you get in touch with Winston in an emergency? I need some clarification from him to try and help Thomas' parents. Of course he's doing well and quite comfortable with us, I hope, but it shouldn't be that mom and son are separated for too long." From Cassandra's voice, it was impossible to guess how close she had taken Thomas and his parents' situation to heart. But now, knowing about his wife's past, Kevin realized how difficult it was for her. "Winston actually gave me a password to a chat room where all messages are automatically burnt. I think we can try to contact him." The man opened the necessary site, entered the data he had learnt by heart at the request of his army friend, and after a few minutes he exclaimed with joy, "It worked, Winston, you've greeted me." Cassandra thoughtfully advised, "Kevin, ask him a question, by the answer to which you can tell for sure whether your friend is talking to you or not. And if there is even the slightest doubt, immediately close the site and take the phone card out of your phone." Alarmed by his wife's suspicions, Kevin quickly typed a few phrases and eagerly awaited the reply. After reading the message he received, the man exhaled in relief. "All is well, that's for sure, Winston," he replied with our code phrase. Cassandra nodded and asked, "Great, text Winston that your wife will be texting him now and give me the phone number. I'll find out from your friend what I need to know." No longer surprised, Kevin handed the smartphone to his wife. She texted with someone she didn't know for quite a while. Then she grabbed a pen, quickly wrote a number on a bread wrapper, tore off a piece of paper with numbers, clutched it in her hand, and handed the phone to her husband. "I'm going to the bathroom. I need to make a call. Text Winston to come to this chat room in an hour. Then hopefully I can give him something concrete." Cassandra walked out of the kitchen and into the bathroom, which had the best noise insulation in the flat. Taking a few deep breaths, the woman dialed her ex-husband's father's memorized number. The phone was unavailable. Cassandra summoned all her willpower and dialed her ex-husband's number. Soon his voice came through the receiver. "I'm listening. Don't be silent." Cassandra's voice became hoarse with excitement, and she answered. "Michael, hello, it's Cassandra. I need your help. Or rather, I think your dad can solve the situation, but I can't reach him. The robot says the phone is out of range." The man's demanding tone softened considerably. "Cassandra, it's good to hear from you. My father is overseas, but if you tell me what the problem is, I'll do my best to help. I work in the district attorney's office now, so all my connections are at your service." "Thank you," the woman replied. She told me everything she'd learned and dictated the number she'd written down. "Okay, Cassandra, I get it. It's not a simple matter, but it's solvable. I think after all, for every scumbag there is a more powerful force. I'll try to help, but tell this friend of mine that I'll call him tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, depending on how things turn out, from his phone, and he can take the call." "Thank you, Michael." Without waiting for her ex-husband's retort, Cassandra ended the conversation, which had been very difficult for her, and washed her face with ice water, hoping it would bring her at least a semblance of composure. Still in the process of talking to Michael, she wanted to apologize to him, but she couldn't. The bitter resentment at the man's inattention that had caused her to lose her children still stung the woman's heart. At the same time, Cassandra realized that without the intervention of her ex-husband, who had extensive connections in the area, Thomas's family was practically doomed, and she wanted to keep the boy safe and try to save his parents. For a while, the woman sat in the bathroom, leveling her heartbeat with breathing exercises. Seeing that an hour had practically passed, she returned to Kevin in the kitchen and informed him of what Michael had said. The man texted his friend the information he had received from his wife and hugged Cassandra tightly. He could see how the woman he loved had shrunk in the last hour, and he didn't know how to help her. He wanted to protect her from all adversity. Instead, Cassandra had to turn, as Kevin easily guessed, to the man who had almost destroyed her fate to the ground. The conversation stirred the woman. She released herself from Kevin's embrace and automatically began clearing the table, oblivious to the fact that she was sending her husband's completely untouched food into the bin. Finally, the man intercepted her hand and suggested, "Drop this fuss. It's been a difficult day and we need to rest." Even as she listened to her sleeping husband's measured breathing, Cassandra could not calm down. The images of her babies came to her eyes as if they were real. Stephen and Marcus smiling toothless smiles at her. Then they were going to kindergarten for the first time and leaning against the window, waving their little hands at her. They hand her holiday cards. Here, obviously conspiring, instead of falling asleep, they applaud loudly and unanimously when she begins to sing them a lullaby. How many pleasant moments there had been, so carefully stored, somewhere far away in her memory, and so rudely had everything been crossed out by an accident. How many times she had warned her sons not to take risks, and still they had not listened. What was the use of being angry now, though? Stephen and Marcus are gone. Their father is now the only hope for Thomas to get a hug from his mom in the very near future. At least let this woman, a complete stranger to Cassandra, be able to help Michael. Thomas began to murmur something, and Cassandra slipped out from under her husband's arm and hurried to the boy. She gently adjusted the blanket he had almost thrown on the floor, felt his forehead, fearing he was running a fever, and sighed in relief as she realized that, in her experience, all was well. Thomas opened his eyes and Cassandra sat down on the edge of the sofa and began to hum softly a lullaby. The boy had long since fallen asleep, but the woman remained seated beside him. She was so anxious for the child to return to his parents, and at the same time, she realized that she would desperately miss spending time with him. As the sky, visible through the slit between the curtains, lightened, Cassandra went quietly to the kitchen to make herself some coffee and work on her paperwork, because there was no point in going to bed. In these dawn hours, there might be matters directly affecting Thomas' fate being decided somewhere far away, but Cassandra was powerless to influence anything. She had already done everything she could to overcome her mortal resentment, and now all she had to do was wait for the outcome. After carefully studying the papers, the woman made notes in the margins on a separate sheet of paper, wrote out her suggestions, and carefully tucking them all away in a zipped folder, began to prepare breakfast, trying not to make any noise. She had already decided to ask her boss to excuse her, so as not to tire the boy too much by traveling to unfamiliar places. After waiting for the time to send messages, Cassandra typed to the boss that she would pass the prepared documents through her husband and began to think of something to please the little guest, who of course was worried about the forced separation from his parents, although he tried to keep up his good behavior. When Kevin, who had showered but was still yawning, came into the kitchen, Cassandra had almost everything ready. She invited her husband to the table and asked, "Kevin, stop by on your way to Mr. Jasper's and give him the file for me. I've already warned him that I won't be able to stop by work for a few days, and if there's anything that needs to be reviewed, have him email it to me or pass it on through you. As a last resort, of course, I'll drive up, but I don't want to stress Thomas out. I wanted to go to my mother's house with him and then go to the children's entertainment center so he could have fun playing on the computer, so he wouldn't think about sad things because he was having nightmares at night." Kevin agreed to his wife's plan, and after quickly swallowing his breakfast, he thanked her and started to get ready for work. Thomas woke up much later, but Cassandra had no thought of waking him up. She wanted the boy to be comfortable. The woman fed the child and then suggested, "Let's stop by my mom's for a bit, and then we'll go somewhere to rest." A text message arrived on Cassandra's phone, and she smiled when she saw the notification that the money had been credited. Kevin had worried about his wife not having any financial problems. The woman smiled and asked the boy, "Would you like me and you to go to an amusement park? It's not too far from the city, and there are lots of fun things to do there: a laughing room, rope courses, and I think even a climbing wall. Do you like that kind of active entertainment, or maybe you prefer the cinema?" "That's no problem either. I haven't watched a film on the big screen in 100 years. Thomas confessed embarrassedly, "I'd rather go to an amusement park, to be honest." "Well, that's where we're going." Bridget was delighted when her daughter came to see her with the boy. It meant Cassandra believed her husband and didn't rush out and demand the child be placed somewhere because of traumatic memories. She could see that Cassandra seemed to thaw out, even after her brief interaction with Thomas, and barely made them leave as soon as possible. "Daughter, I'm feeling just fine today. Go have fun. If anything, of course, I'll call you, and don't worry at all, really. It's like I even have more energy today after yesterday's walk." Turning to the boy, Bridget asked, "Thomas, I beg you, rest well for you and me." The boy nodded quite seriously and promised, "I'll have Cassandra take pictures and send them to you. You have a state-of-the-art smartphone, don't you?" The woman smiled and praised. "Well done. Great idea. That's right. I'm going to have fun with you. Cassandra, check your phone is charged." Cassandra reassured her mom by saying that she could charge her phone in the car at any time. Soon the guests left Bridget, and she was left alone to dream that her daughter would finally decide to become a mom again. It was obvious to her that Cassandra had a great way with children, but she had suffered for so many years, deliberately avoiding contact with them. "May everything turn out well for my suffering little girl." Bridget prayed aloud, hoping that the plea would be heard upstairs. Cassandra, driving with particular care, drove Thomas out for fun and felt the weight of her willingly assumed responsibility growing on her. The boy had first of all asked to go on the ropes course, and the woman had agreed. Though at the sight of the rope stretched high, she wanted to grab the child in her arms and not let go. Cassandra watched the frolicking child and from time to time took photos, but did not dare to distract herself from sending particularly expressive pictures to her mother. It seemed to her that if she distracted herself for even a few seconds, something bad would happen to the boy. The thought crossed her mind of the degree of desperation Thomas's mom had been in, agreeing to give her son to a near stranger. Such an act could only be dared because of the real threat to the child's life and health. So she, Cassandra, had no right to let down a woman about whom she knew the bare minimum of information. Name, surname, age, and the fact that the unfortunate woman and her husband were involved in a story that she could not get out of on her own. Cassandra, however, was in an even more advantageous position. Cheryl, Thomas's mom, knew less about the people who had taken her son in. The fun-filled Monday had flashed by without a second thought. The boy, tired from his many outdoor activities, fell asleep after a hearty dinner and rested peacefully until morning without crying out or waking up. Kevin and Cassandra chatted quietly in the kitchen. The woman spoke enthusiastically about how bravely Thomas had conquered the rides and showed pictures. Tomorrow I want to take our guest to our museums after his visit to his mother, and then to the cinema or vice versa, as Thomas wants. If you can, come along, it'll be fun. He's so funny and sometimes he has such deep thoughts. He told me today that adults try to look serious on purpose to be feared and not to be picked on. Can you imagine? The man agreed that there was something reasonable in this inference and suggested, "Cassandra, let's go to bed too, like Thomas, because tomorrow, as I understand it, will be no less busy." Neither Tuesday nor Wednesday brought news from Michael or the boy's relatives. Although the child attended all kinds of entertaining and educational establishments, his mood was getting worse every day. He became increasingly brooding and sad. Kevin and Cassandra realized that the boy was missing his family more and more, but had no influence on the situation. It wasn't until Thursday, when Cassandra and Thomas were visiting Bridget, that the long-awaited phone call came. Michael informed his ex-wife that the main difficulties were over and warned her. "There are still a few things to be resolved, but that's the small stuff. The important thing is that the boy is now safe. His parents are on their way to the town where you live now. I warned them to call you in advance, as they will arrive and clarify the address. Anyway, I'll see this thing through to the final point, of course, so don't worry." Cassandra thanked her ex-husband profusely. "Thank you, Michael, and I'm sorry for everything." The man's voice was ringing as he replied to the woman he had hurt so much. "Cassandra, you have no idea how glad I am to hear from you, even if it is on such an occasion. I wish you happiness, and if you need anything, don't hesitate to ask. I'm always happy to help." Cassandra said goodbye to her ex-husband, and Bridget, who had heard her daughter's conversation, couldn't believe her own ears. It seemed her Cassandra had just spoken quite adequately to a man she had once loved dearly and then hated. "Mom, we have to leave. Thomas's parents are on their way and I have to give him a bath." The child realized that he would soon see his mom and dad and started jumping around the room shouting, "Yay!" Cassandra barely managed to keep him quiet. Bridget, happy that the situation had been resolved, gave the boy a souvenir of her photograph in the stamp collection he liked so much. "Here, Thomas, you will look at the album and remember me." The child promised. "Thank you, but I won't forget you, Grandma Bridget, even without stamps." Seizing the moment, Cassandra called her husband to tell him the good news, but it turned out he already knew. "Cassandra, Winston has already told me that thanks to your help, everything has been resolved. I'm taking a taxi home now to get ready for the guests." Cassandra was a little sad to part with the boy who had awakened in her memories of the most joyful days in the company of her sons, and she invited him to visit the toy shop on the way. "You know, I'd really like to get you something too. Choose whatever you want." The boy did not resist, but apparently shy, did not walk for a long time between the racks of toys on display, and soon he took a robot from the shelf, which was not the most expensive. On the way to the checkout, Cassandra put in her basket the aeroplane Thomas had once told her about, and a few more board games. "Oh, there's so much," said the child in surprise. "What a treat today." Cassandra agreed. "Yes, Thomas, it is a very big holiday today." By the time the doorbell rang, the boy was already cleanly bathed, and the cutlery was flaunting on the table. Cheryl, barely over the threshold, rushed to her son, hugging him and showering him with kisses. The boy's father handed Cassandra flowers, and Winston gave Kevin a firm, manly hug. After Thomas, assuming the role of an adult, introduced the parents to the owners of the flat, Everyone sat down at the table. Cheryl volunteered to help Cassandra and confessed. "If it weren't for your kindness, I don't know how we would have managed. I don't know how to express my gratitude. My husband and I have raised money to cover the cost of Thomas and your inconvenience." Cassandra turned pale and replied, "Cheryl, put that envelope away immediately. Don't insult me with this act. You have a boy who will be going to school soon, so spend this money on him. And, if you don't mind, send me and my husband a picture of him once in a while. That would be the best thanks." An embarrassed Cheryl burst into tears and hugged Cassandra. When Thomas, concerned about Mum and Cassandra's long absence from the table, peeked into the kitchen, he saw the women roaring, unable to hold back their tears, and began to ask in a mature manner, "What happened? Did you bump, cut, burn?" Cassandra and Cheryl synchronously wiped away their tears. Mum reassured her son, "It's okay, honey. Everything is just fine." Hugging the boy, she picked him up, lifted him up and spun him around. Cassandra watched the happy people and did not feel envy, but wished that this family had all their troubles in the past. After the guests left, Cassandra trustingly snuggled up to her husband and confessed to him, "You know, I think I'm ready for motherhood. Thomas proved to me that children are the greatest happiness." The man did not change his wife's mind. Soon Cassandra pleased him and Bridget with the news of her pregnancy. Exactly on time and without any complications, the woman gave birth to a daughter. The girl was named Veronica, as a symbol of victory over the terrible situation that had happened to the sister of Kevin's army friend, and victory over the terrible memories of the past.